I want to call this meeting of the Belton Independent School District Board of Trustees to order. A quorum of board members is present. This meeting's been duly called and posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Would you join me in the pledge to the American flag? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. I was at Tarver Elementary this morning for their flagpole assembly, and I was reminded again, we need to have our school pledge. You know, all these schools, when you go to the schools, they do the American flag, the Texas flag, and then they have the school pledge, and I don't know any of them, but boy, do the students know them well. And it's always a special treat to be with them. Thank you for joining us this evening. We're going to begin. So make sure the board knows Leo is out of town and unable to be with us tonight. So we're struggle on without him, but glad Jeff's with us because we missed you. So we're going to begin tonight with workshop items on some of our plannings with a demographic. Are you going to start us, or?
No, we're going to start with
moving ahead.
Trent Smith from Templeton Demographics this evening.
Thank you for being with us this evening.
Again, my name is Trent Smith. I'm with Templeton Demographics. So thank you to the opportunity to come and share our information with you tonight.
Well, that might help. So, green light helps. We're going to look at the local economy. We're going to take a look at the housing market. And we're going to go through and look at the projections as they move forward through the next 10 years. And so I'm going to just jump right in and go right through it. So basically, as you can see, Texas is a great place to live. The unemployment is at or has been at or below the national unemployment level for the last 10 years. Right now, you can see that here in the Killeen-Temple MSA, the unemployment is down at 4.8%, and in Temple specifically, it is at 3.7%. And most economists will tell you that anything below 5 or at 5 is considered full employment. And so we're doing really well in this area. Annual job annual job growth rate in the state of Texas is at 1.6%. 1.7 across the nation, but here in Killeen-Temple area is at 2.1%. As far as the local housing market goes, you can see this is the Belton housing market. The year-to-date sales are down a little bit at 139 through September of 2016, and these are compared to basically 2016 of last year.
Is that the city of Belton?
That is the city of Belton, yes. And this is based on the multiple listing service that we get through both the Temple, excuse me, area information, but also through Texas A&M Real Estate Center. So the sales are down a little bit. The average sale is actually up 1.9%. The median price is actually down 11.1%. The number of listings is up 39.6%, and the existing home inventory is up about 50%. Now, what I don't want you to do is allow those percentages to scare you, because we're dealing in very small numbers. So small increases or decreases create quite a large percentage difference there. And you're still below the average month supply across the United States, which is about 4.5 months supply of inventory. And so just a little bit of perspective. In Temple specifically, this is the city of Temple. Sales are up about 13.9%. Average price is down 4.6%. Median price has stayed level over the last 12 months. And the number of listings is up again 34%. And the existing home inventory is up 15.6% at 3.7 months of supply for existing homes. Now, looking specifically at Belton ISD, this has been the new home activity based on the deed transactions from the county. And so these taper slightly behind the actual numbers in that takes some time for the paperwork to finish out at the deed transaction. But year-to-date, you can see that we're at 325 new homes closed or new homes sold within the district. We're tracking right along with last year at 378, likely to overtake that within the next few months.
Chris, does that count everything in Belton ISD or just within the city?
No, this is everything within Belton ISD. And so, but you're up at 27 new homes over last year at the same time. And so sales were up 17.8% over 2014. For 2015, we're expecting sales to go up again over last year for 16 over 15.
So you're actually pulling that off deed records?
That's correct. And so then we take that deed record information and we took a look at a couple of different things. So what percentage of those sales were new homes? What percentage were regular resale homes? You can see where regular resale was about almost 67% of your sales, where new homes was about 24% of your sales, with a new home average price of about $213,000 and a regular resale average price of about $190,000 across the district. And again, this is specifically to the district based on deed transactions. So when we looked at the city of Belton and new single-family residential permit history, you can see where this year we're well ahead of where we've been over the past few years, mostly due to Three Creeks. So the orange bar there that you see that has spiked up the residential home permits across the city of Belton has been the introduction of the homes out at Three Creeks. So this year we've seen up through October 25th, we've seen 154 new home permits in the city of Belton.
So without Three Creeks, continue to see a trend of declining.
A slight decline. And that could be true and not true based on, if Three Creeks hadn't been there, that activity could have come somewhere else. And so then we looked at the city of Temple, did the same thing. The trend right now is headed upward with 349 year-to-date new residential permits, and these are just within the Belton ISD. City of Temple, but only within Belton ISD. So this is basically just a map of the district showing the overall activity that's going on within the district. The yellow that you see there are future subdivisions. The green mark active subdivisions. And right now there's over 6,000 planned future lots available within the district. There's about 1,200 lots available today to start building homes on, or what we call vacant developed lots. And so those are with roads, utilities, everything ready to start a foundation today. Then you have, currently, we're expecting the district to hit about 450 to 500 new homes in the year of 2016. And a pretty good chunk of that is due to the Three Creeks starting their home building. Now we're going to take a look at specific residential neighborhoods within the district. So this is Dawson Ranch, has about 330 total lots. There's 10 homes under construction there, building about 40 to 50 homes a year. Looks like they're going to deliver 129 lots by the end of next year. And that's the yellow area over on the west side, that Dawson Ridge addition. And so that will continue to go on. We're expecting that to continue at that 40 to 50 homes a year rate. Right now you've got at Highland Estates, there's 83 total lots, 33 vacant developed lots or lots ready to build on. Phase 3 has started, which will deliver the remaining 34 futures and should be ready for home building at the beginning of 2017. They're looking to build about 10 to 15 homes a year in 2017. The next one is the Carriage House. So it's got 195 total lots with 36 of those already occupied. 15 of those homes are under construction, and they're building about 20 homes a year, and that is in Pirtle Elementary Zone. This is Rancho del Lago. It's got 120 total future lots We're expecting home building to start late next year. We anticipate building about 25 to 30 homes there a year once that gets started. And it is currently split between Lakewood and High Point elementary zones. Then we've got Westfield. Westfield has almost 1,100 total lots, with 750 of those still in futures. They have 11 homes currently under construction, with about 50 of these homes are actually outside the district, actually are in Temple ISD. The homes are starting now at the villages of Westfield and are about to start there in this month. Phase 2 is about to deliver another 103 lots, which are under review with the city of Temple currently. They're building about 75 homes a year in this particular subdivision, and that is in Tarver Elementary Zone. We have Northgate. Northgate has about 133 total lots, with 44 of those ready to build on. They have 24 homes under construction currently, and they're building about 30 to 40 homes a year also in Tarver Elementary Zone. Lake Point has about 710 homes, with 182 of those already occupied. They've closed 96 homes in the last 12 months. Groundwork is underway on Phase 3, and they're expecting to deliver that in early 2017. Again, they're building about 75 homes a year in that subdivision also. And both of those are in Tarver. This is Hills of Westwood, has about 900 total lots, 310, so about a third of that is already built out. They have 12 homes under construction with groundwork started on Phase 9. Phase 9 is currently split between Tarver and Pirtle Elementary Zone, and they are building about 50 homes a year in this subdivision. And this is Three Creeks. Three Creeks has about 1,400 total homes, with 30 homes already occupied. They have 31 homes currently under construction, and they are building about 125 homes a year in Three Creeks subdivision, and that is in Chisholm Trail Elementary Zone. This is Lakewood Ranch. Lakewood Ranch has two sections. They have the campus at Lakewood Ranch, and they have the Groves at Lakewood Ranch. The Groves has the most future lots available, and they have 20 under construction there, and they have about 25 homes already occupied there at the Groves, and with 97 vacant developed lots available to build on. Phases 2 and 3 were delivered in the summer, and home building is underway there, obviously. They do have a high current yield right now of about 0.88, which means for every 100 homes, you'd have about 88 kids. The campus at Lakewood Ranch is about 200 lots almost. There's 171 of those occupied. There are no futures left within that subdivision. They've all been delivered. They have 5 homes under construction, and they have about a 0.74 yield in that neighborhood. And those are both in Lakewood Elementary Zone. Hubbard Branch has about 500 total lots. It's under final review. The final plat is under review for Phase 1, which has 177 lots. They're anticipating starting home building sometime next fall, and that is in Miller Heights Elementary Zone. We also have Dove Meadows, has 108 future lots, but it has been approved for some time, and there's been no activity currently in that subdivision. But the Plains at Riverside definitely has activity with 22 homes under construction, and they're building about 25 homes a year there, with 22 remaining lots, with the 113 futures still remaining there. And that's in Pirtle Elementary Zone, both of those. Sendero Estates. Sendero Estates was formerly called Chisholm Trail West. Has 177 future lots, but this is one that has also been approved but has no development activity at this time. That is in Chisholm Trail Elementary Zone, so we'll have to keep our eye on that one. So we also took a look at what was going on in multifamily product here in the district. You've got Colonial Crossing, which is under construction. We're expecting it to impact the district this year with the 208 units nearing finish at this point. It's in Southwest Elementary Zone. We've got the Commerce Street apartments, which actually was a tax credit, and that got denied, so they will not be building at this time. It doesn't mean that they won't go back and reapply for that. That does happen from time to time. So we will have to kind of keep our eye on that as well. River Springs, Phase 2 construction to start in December of this year, and that is to be finished in the summer of 2018, and that's in Sparta Elementary Zone. Then you've got a future multifamily unit that is kind of in a mixed-use area with some retail mixed in with it, and we're still working through the details on that. None of that's actually been fully decided yet, so we'll have to also keep an eye on that as well. Then we took a look at what the history is there of the apartment yields within the district. You can see that Belton has 14 existing apartment complexes with a current average yield of about 0.37. The highest yielding apartments are in the Southwest Elementary Zone with about a yield of about 0.86. And so you can see that the red dot there, that's the one that has the highest yield, with the orange dots and then down the yellow dots and down the green dots as those diminishing amount of students per apartment. But it does give you a nice clear picture of basically where your apartments are and what type of yield you're getting out of each one of those apartments and what elementary zone they have the most effect on. So we kind of broke down the student body as a whole and looked at several things. We looked at out-of-district transfers, we looked at multifamily yields, we looked at single-family yields and manufactured home yields. You can see where this year you do have a little over 140 or almost 140 more transfer students than you had last year. Now, some of that could be from we did a better geocode, we got a better numbers or better addresses from our geocode this time. And so you can see where we had 105 fewer unmatched addresses, and so some of those could be coming from that. It's kind of hard to determine, but it is something that you do want to review and look at how many out-of-district transfers you are having and to be able to nail that down specifically. And if that was just a geocode thing, or do you technically have 100 more, because it's very possible that you do. As far as multifamily students, you have actually 100 fewer multifamily students this year than you did last year. So that went down 1.1%, and it went up 1.1% in your single family. And so you had 291 more single-family students this year than you had last year. As far as manufactured homes, you had 2 more students this year than you did last year. And so a very small difference there as far as that goes. But across the district, you can see where your average home yield is about 0.59. So then we took all the information that we gathered. We looked at, okay, so what's going to affect the district moving forward, and how can we start at the bottom end with the kindergartners and kind of get an idea of what we're expecting to see with the kindergarten class moving forward. And so a little bit of history on the kindergarten and why we kind of made this next slide is because this year in the state of Texas, our normal average attendance across the state increases about 80,000 kids a year. This year it only increased 67,000 kids a year. All 13,000 deficit were in kindergarten this year. And so our kindergarten class as a state was 13,000 students lower than normal. And so when we looked at that, it had a profound effect on many of our districts that we work with. And so we went in and looked at the birth rate data to see if there was a trend that we could follow for the number of births within Belton ISD.
So are you saying the birth rate was low in 2010?
Absolutely.
Which we saw it was coming then?
To some degree, but it normally doesn't have as profound of effect because we do have quite a bit of migration within the state of Texas because of the jobs that we've seen, the job growth that we've seen as a state, and so that tends to. Right.
Birth rate in 2010.
That's correct.
But did it come back up in 2011 and 12?
It has been, well, you can see on the chart here where it did start coming back up a little bit as far as in 2010 is when it first started to rise back up. Now, this is specifically, this isn't across the state, though. This is within Belton ISD. So you guys didn't quite see the drop. You saw it in 2009, but you didn't really see it as you didn't have near the effect that the rest of the state had as far as birth rates go. So yours have actually trended extremely close to your kindergarten numbers. And so we had to put this chart in here because none of our other districts trend near this closely. So it's one of those where we went, wow, okay, we need to use this. And so when we took a look at it, so we did use these numbers to kind of generate where we feel like your kindergarten numbers will be over the next 3 years. And you can see where there is a small dip from 2012 to 2013.
If I'm understanding this right, the birth rate is a very good predictor of what the birth rate per year is a very good predictor of what our kindergarten enrollment will be 5 years later.
It has been for the past 8 years, yes, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, no, it's tracking crazy, yes.
But that's not normally what you see?
Well, it changes through different types of districts. Right. Yeah, no, this is just super tight correlation that we haven't seen, that we don't normally see.
That's good for planning purposes.
No, it is. It's very good for planning purposes. It is very good for planning purposes. And so you can see where we've projected, your kindergarten class next year to be around 810 students, 807 the year after that, and 823 the year after that. And why is that important to point out the kindergarten class? It's important because when you look at when a district takes a hit at kindergarten, so let's say, just for, to explain a little bit about that, if you had dropped 100 kindergartners this year versus last year, well, that class now has a very difficult time catching up class size-wise with the rest of the district. And so as it travels through your district, it kind of creates a trough. And then every once in a while, you'll have a really big class come through, and it'll create a wave coming through your district. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that because next year you have quite a big, this year you had a small graduating class. Next year you're going to have a very large graduating class. And so those things create these waves through your district, and it does have an effect on basically the numbers as they come through. And so you can see where last year you grew at 320 students. This year you grew at 257. Well, 32 of that was just the difference between last year's senior class and this year's senior class. So that's an example of the trough coming through where that small class has come through and made a little bit of a dent into the growth number. Then next year you have 783 students coming through. And so those numbers will fluctuate the amount of growth that comes through on a particular time. You can see this year your largest class is in the yellow, the second largest class is in the green. So actually, wow, those are wrong. The ninth grade class is your largest class. Those need to be switched. So your ninth grade class is 875, your fourth grade class is 874, so there's only one student difference there. But those are your two largest classes moving forward. But you can kind of see where your ninth grade class has been one of your largest classes every year.
But isn't that part of, there are some sophomores who didn't
Yes.
get all their credits, so the ninth grade is
Absolutely.
always going to be the largest.
It's always going to be one of yours.
Kids and they earn credit, and then
Correct.
move on.
Right. We call those freshmores because they're likely in sophomore level classes, but they just didn't quite get enough credits for the state to consider them a freshman. And so that does tend to happen, and it does tend to affect your 10th grade class numbers at snapshot time as well. But we're expecting you guys to have your first 1,000-kid class, the 9th grade class of 2019. And so we're expecting you to have 1,000 ninth graders in 2019. And then have your first 1,000 grade senior level at 2025. We are expecting you to hit some interesting numbers. So you've got 2,000.
It's going to take a little longer.
It will. You've got 263 growth. In 4 years, we're expecting you to have about 468 new students in the district with about 3.9% growth. And that'll come with that. You've got a very high fluctuation right now of new homes coming in, and a lot of that growth is going to kind of add to that number there about 4 years out. So you're looking at a 5-year growth of over 1,800 students at 1,863 with a enrollment of almost 13,000 students in 2021. A 10-year growth of about 3,600 students with a in 26-27 having a total enrollment of about 14,736.
So Trent, you're going to jump ahead and do some detail thing, but I guess a general question that I'm curious about, we didn't quite, last year when Bob came, the number was just perfect. It was right on, which was uncannily, almost eerie. It was so right on. We're a little bit under what we projected this year, yet these numbers are higher than we've seen in the past. So they're ramping up a little bit.
It is, and a big part of that is if you look at your elementary classes. So your elementary classes this year across the board are, except maybe second grade, almost every class all the way through 5th grade is larger this year than it was last year.
So while
considerably.
our growth this year was not quite as much as we expected,
Right.
what's coming through the pipeline is still more than
Right.
was projected 6 months ago when you were here.
Right,
Yep.
and that's because it's
Last
become
February.
heavier on the elementary, that growth came heavy on the elementary side this year.
Okay.
And so as those classes continue to build up, those are going to be much larger classes moving through the district. And so
Okay.
long-term, it has that wave effect that we just talked about. So here are the elementary campuses. We looked at all the elementary campuses. We compared to the stated capacity that the district gave us as far as what the capacities are of each elementary zone. And so you've got, Belton, or you've got Chisholm Trail Elementary, which we expect to hit 800 students in 2018 and 900 students in 2020. You've got Leon Heights, which is currently already over your stated capacity number, and we're expecting them to hit about 300 students in 2020, with Tarver hitting 600 students next year and 700 students in 2022. And so the highlighted yellow area where those numbers get within 5% or more of your stated capacity. So here's the look at the secondary locations. So Lake Belton Middle School will hit that 5% number next year at 851 students, hitting 900 students in 2019 and over 1,000 students in 2021. With North Belton Middle School hitting about the 1,000 student mark either in 2018 or 2019. At the high school level, we're expecting Belton High School to hit 2,800 students in 2018 and over 3,000 students in 2020, and could likely hit it even in 2019 with a small bump in what our projection is.
That's in 3 years.
2018, that would be in 2 years. That'd be the 18-19
19.
18-19 school year. So to sum everything up, the Killeen Temple MSA has strong job growth at 2.1%, which is higher than the state average. Home sales in Temple and Belton through September 2016 are more than 8% over this number that you hit in 2015, which was a very strong year for the district. Belton ISD has added almost 1,500 students over the last, or more than 1,500 students over the last 5 years, and we're expecting them to add almost 1,800 students or more than 1,800 students over the next 5 years. The city has issued almost 350 new home permits, the city of Temple, just this year, and Belton has issued more than 312, or has already surpassed last year's number of 312 permits. Three Creeks in Chisholm Trail Elementary has already issued 99 new home permits in 2016. So we're definitely expecting them to hit their 125 a year number. Belton ISD will add over 1,800 students over the next 5 years for a fall enrollment in 2021 of 12,982 students. The district will enroll more than 14,700 students in 2026.
How are Three Creeks permits issued? how you follow that number, because they're actually not going through the city for full permit. So,
We speak with the city, we speak with the county, and so those have to go through one of those two entities, and so we're checking with all possible entities when those come through.
is it a water meters issue, because that's a mud in their own?
I'm not exactly sure I just know that we could get that number
Yes, I heard-
directly
it
from
seemed like when
the,
we asked the city folks at one point, they said that they're tracking it. They're
right. I do
watching.
believe
I
the
don't
city
remember
is
why or
tracking that,
how
actually.
exactly, but they're
But they're
saying.
not tracking it with their permit numbers. If you watch their permit numbers, are
Right,
still
but they
at
have,
70.
but they have some mechanism, I don't remember what it was, but I remember them commenting that they are keeping track of it pretty close. So that may be
But
a
we-
good follow-up question to find out
Right.
how they do that.
I can certainly find that out, but I do know that we did get that information from the city of Belton.
I drove by there, it looked like a lot of rooftops going.
Right.
Yeah.
We've done that many times also.
Yeah. So, there are other sites going up that aren't on your map too, in addition to this. I mean, this isn't an absolute universal, every lot that's being built on.
No, but what we have featured are the most active subdivisions with the largest amount. So if there's infill, the smaller
Yeah.
things that are going on with infill, then we don't necessarily track that because it's a minimal impact. But we try to do we try to be as thorough as possible with everything that we could. And so we feel like the others, the infill and the very small things that are happening, we get that through the permit information and through the deed transactions.
Yeah, and I don't say, I've always kind of looked at these numbers. Y'all get very precise on the numbers, and I try and round them off because
Sure.
they're projections and averages and all, and so they're good projections, and they've shown to be valid. They're frightening, though. So, I guess
Buckle
my
up. question
question in that is there more than that? You've ramped up our projections, and I'm wondering, is there more than that potentially?
Well, I think that, we tend to err on the side of conservative. And so, so when you look at our projections, let's see if I can get back to it going. When you look at our projections, the question really isn't, are you going to have 14,000 students in Belton ISD? It's more a question of when. And so we try to hit that number as close as we can, but you're going to have 14,000 students in Belton ISD.
Right, and whether
and
it's
so-
in 2023 or 2025, it's
Right.
gonna be there.
Right.
Because
And
birth
what-
rates and housing charts
No.
don't lie.
What we do is we try to get as close as humanly possible for 1 year out, as close as we possibly can for the next, 1 to 3 years out. 5 years out, when you starting to get past 5 years, there's a lot of factors that can happen to change those numbers. And so that's a little bit more crystal ball when you get out, in that
So again,
5
we
to
need to
10
round off
year.
those numbers and think more generally, it's not necessarily 14,432, but
Right.
it's over 14,400, that's.
Right, correct.
We can round those numbers off. They're big numbers, though.
They are big numbers.
Clearly relevant for our planning process. Okay, does anybody have any other questions for Trent?
I have one question, I'm not sure who it's for, but in the enrollment projections, Sparta actually declines, and I can't remember if there's something that causes that.
That,
Go back up to that page, maybe the,
From 578 to
That one,
546.
that one.
some of that will have to do with class sizes. And then some of that will have to do with what we look at, so a little bit deeper information. We break the district up into,
you show High Point.
for lack of a better term, puzzle pieces that we call planning areas. Then we go into each planning area and we forecast out how many homes will, how many lots could possibly be within each planning area. And then we look at, okay, so how long is that within current plans? And so if it is, then we plot out about how many lots, what's the rate that's going through that neighborhood. And so when we start looking at that, And so is it possible that Sparta will continue to grow? It won't have decline? Absolutely. But at current, planning area, future outlook, that growth is happening in other places. And so when you look at the sheer number of homes that are planned out there to build, it's got to, it's going to take away from another area to be able to build that a certain amount in the very hot areas. And so what's likely, what we're seeing there is that there's not as much future numbers within that particular elementary zone. And so over time, it'll have a little bit of a diminish, but it'll likely just come right back up with, either regrowth or, people moving in and to the, older homes and then remodeling, things like that. So there is that as well. There's turnover there that happens.
So.
I hope that answers
kinda
your question.
Related to that, you talked, some of those, you mentioned the students per household
Right.
ratio and all. There's a difference in elementary and secondary too, and I would assume that some of these subdivisions are more likely gonna have older children than.
Absolutely.
and size of house and.
We do,
price of
and we do
houses.
look at that.
So is that a
we-
factor, that factors into when you do some of this stuff? They may have a
Absolutely.
lot of growth. When I go, for example, I go out and I say, wow, High Point, Lakewood, Sparta aren't gonna fill out by that chart, but there's a lot of houses being built in those areas. But
Right.
are they more secondary students
Right.
projected to be in those houses?
And it does, we do take that into, we take that into account. And we look at, in fact, when we do those projections by planning area, we look at the
Percent of-
elementary yield, and we look at first grade yield versus second grade yield. We look at elementary yield versus middle school versus high school. So all of those factors are taken into consideration when we project those numbers out. So it could be size of house, could be, price points, it could be all of those things taken into consideration.
So, Mike, back to what you were talking about, I always kind of looked at these and said, okay, whether one school is that's the right number for them, the totals, because we're gonna move lines potentially too, and so that, absolutely, as soon as we build one new elementary school, none of that's valid individually, because there'll be new lines. It's the totals that matter, and then how they divide out. But it's good questioning, so helps us understand this stuff. Regardless, it's a growth. Any other questions? Thank you, Trent. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you
Thanks for
very
the update. We always look forward to seeing what the latest news is on our growth. Okay, so that leads us to our next elementary school planning update. Who's going to go with that? Berto, you're going to take that one? All right, welcome back. We've got to find a place to put these kids that Trent says are coming.
That's correct. Members of the board, Dr. Kincannon and Mr. Pittenger, thank you for having us back. Robert Ramirez again, and, I'm sorry. My name is Robert Ramirez. I'm with WRA Architects, and I'd like to show you an update on where we are since the last time we came up here. And this is our list, the last slide that we had when I presented the 4 sites. The first 3, the investigation of the construction costs and the deceleration lanes and the new roads at at a couple of the sites, and the investigation of the utility costs and the lift stations, that's going to be on the next slide. And then the future development of the FM roads along with TxDOT. I'm going to get into those costs in the next slide as well. Investigation of the cost of the building, 1-story versus 2-story. I talked about that a little bit last time, and that there is minimal difference in the cost because of the savings that you're going to have in foundation costs and also in the savings or in the cost that you're going to have in having the stairs and elevators, the additional square footage. So those are kind of almost negligible. We also collaborated with Templeton Demographics in investigating these sites as well. And then the city codes are also something that we took a look at. And last time, I did want to mention that last time I brought up that the storm shelter was going to be something that was likely going to be considered, and we've looked at it, and Belton is below the line that requires a storm shelter by probably 40, 50 miles, something like that. So it's below the line, so we're not going to have that requirement here. So this is a cost comparison of the 4 sites that we looked at, and also just the utilities and how much the site development costs are going to be. And the first one, Northgate, which is in Temple, has a cost of approximately $200,000 for the site utilities for the sewer, and bringing that to the site. There's no other site development costs. There are some road improvements that need to happen there, but that's going to be taken care of by the city. Poison Oak is also in Temple, and that site had good utilities around it, so there's no additional cost than any normal site for utilities. But there is a 2-lane road that's going to be done also by the city of Temple. Second Avenue is the one here in Belton, and it is, the biggest cost there is going to be the cost of FM 93, putting in turning lanes, putting in deceleration lanes, that kind of thing to turn into our site. So that's where the 1.7 million total comes out for that. Of course, there's also the lift station that's going to be put in, which is approximately $200,000. And Hubbard Branch site is very similar. It does have a lift station requirement for the utilities, and the cut and fill, which is also the same as Second Avenue. And there's a deceleration lane to put in on that site as well.
Are you talking about on the Second Avenue for the turn lane on Second Avenue, not off of the loop, but on?
Correct. On Second Avenue, correct. Correct.
Would it be significantly different than what they had to do on the south side of the road for the apartment complex?
From what I understand, that there was a traffic impact analysis done for the apartments, and that once a school was put in, there would have to be some other, some more deceleration or some more turning lanes put in and some more decelerations, because there is going to be the increased traffic there, obviously. It would be, the deceleration lane would take place on the side of the street, so it would be coming out, making a right turn if you're heading west. And the rest of it is going to be turning lanes to the left and to the right, going onto the loop.
$1 million high. I thought it looked like they spent $1 million on what they had to do.
Well, and the other part of this is that they're going to, and this is in our meeting with the city, is that they're going to require putting in a curb on the road improvements that we do. And once we do that, we're going to be required to put in a storm sewer in there as well. And so that adds to that cost. So I forgot to mention that. Right.
They wanted us full in the city development.
And the other site that we looked at, just again to compare, because the greatest need that at the time when we looked at this was at Leon Heights Elementary. So we were asked to take a look at the viability of building on this site, tear down and rebuild. And we determined that the site is too small to develop. It's unless we go to 2 or more story school. And the site is also oddly shaped to take advantage of it. Just that one square at the bottom is about a 5-acre site, and that's really small for an elementary school if we just use that site.
Revisited that, city funds,
Have we?
small amount of acres currently owned around that site, but it was worth visiting to think about that.
The next thing we took a look at was the cost of recent elementary schools here in the Belton area, and I'll go over those real quick. This is Leander ISD Elementary School, which is a 110,000 square foot school, opened last year, and at $23.8 million is about $216 a square foot. Robinson ISD Intermediate School is a 85,000 square foot school at $17 million, which is a $200 a square foot, and that opened this year. Mesquite ISD, this is one of ours. It's actually up in North Texas. That's planned for opening in July of 2018, and it's 96,000 square feet, $20 million, and $207 a square foot. And this one's already bid, so this one's, like I said, it's a longer construction period. But And then these are just three other examples that kind of round out the cost per square foot as around 200 to, the 175 is kind of an anomaly there, but I still wanted to include it because it's about the same size. And all these vary in finish out and vary in construction type and that kind of thing, so that's why there's so much variation. And then talking to, you see at the bottom left, I talked to Joris Construction and also talked to Bartlett Cock Construction. And in talking to both of them, I established probably at this point, just a rough budget idea of about $220 a square foot for a school.
What's the inflation rate going right now?
The inflation
For
rate,
construction costs, what are y'all seeing?
don't remember what's the
Projected
number.
or?
Typically average about
5% a year.
year.
Yeah, about 5% a year.
That's a good average to use for a year.
Okay. I'll ask you. Okay,
And the last thing was just the timeline again, just kind of getting zooming out and seeing where we are in the time. Starting April 1st puts us in the right timeline to open in July of 2018. Oh, sorry, in July of 2019. So that's all I have.
okay, any questions? That's pretty much what we've been seeing here, so,
All right,
any other? Okay,
all right, thanks.
listen, it is 5:48, and I think I'm gonna postpone the closed session till the end. We've got a bunch of kids gathering out up there, and we need to reset and get them in here for some recognitions. So let's take a break for about 10 minutes. We'll reconvene at 6 o'clock. If I can have your attention. Okay, we're going to try and do this, and one of the best things about our meetings is we celebrate success, and tonight's a wonderful night because we have an overflow crowd, because we have so many of our students and faculty to recognize. Great opportunity for us tonight. So, a couple of just information pieces for those of you that haven't been with us before. We want this to be fun and a photo opportunity for you. So parents, please don't be shy about coming up here. We're gonna stage everybody right up here on the podium, block our view, so you can take pictures. We encourage you to come up and take pictures. Kristen Gordon will be taking pictures for our website and posting them on the website. But we want you to also, and your students want you to take their picture, even if they act like they don't. So please go ahead and do that. Don't be shy about coming up. We'll bring each group up as a group and pause for photos and then bring the next group up. So, thank you for joining us. Kyle, you want to get us started with the Student Congress State Qualifier and Alternate?
Thank you, Mr. Pittenger. We're really excited to have, for the first time, at least in recent memory, a state qualifier in Student Congress. Earlier this month, the Belton High School UIL team competed in the regional contest in Salado, and Tyree Ransom placed third at the regional contest, qualifying
here?
for
I'm not
state. I
finding
haven't
Tyree.
seen him this evening. And Sarah Batson placed fifth, which makes her the region's second alternate for the state competition. Really cool, happens in January, and if they advance to the final round of that competition, they actually compete at the state capitol in Austin.
Okay, well, we'll catch to them a little bit later, but congratulations. So great. All right, is Brooke here? I haven't
She's
seen
not.
Brooke
She had a
either.
family commitment this
Brooke isn't
evening.
here. Well, let's talk
So,
about Brooke. 'Cause
we're celebrating her as a state qualifier this month. Next month, we get to celebrate her as a state medalist. This weekend, she placed 10th in the state cross-country championship.
That's awesome. It is a big deal to be a medalist at 6A state meet. That is a huge accomplishment. Okay, well, we've got some middle school band and orchestra students to recognize. Let's start with our band.
We have a lot of middle school band and orchestra students. In all, more than 80 students earned positions or alternate positions in one of the two all-region middle school bands. Tonight, we're recognizing the students who were first, second, or third chair in the top band. That's the symphonic band. And those students, starting with the students from Lake Belton Middle School, are Rachel Bledsoe,
Come on up.
Bryce Borland. Abby Cargile.
Stay up here, stay up here, stay up here. Come up here. Come up here.
Olivia Krim.
Stay up here, stay up here.
Gracie Johnson. Jillian McHugh. Lily Miller. Irene Rivera. Alan Ross.
Good job, guys. Smile, smile, smile. Just keep
And
smiling.
Ethan Zorn. From North Belton Middle School, we have Emily Ebers,
Yes, we're bored.
Kendall Olson, Emily Thomas, and Zane Williams. From South Belton Middle School, we have Joseph Knox, Jacob Masters, Abigail.
We dropped them. Can you give us just?
Slow
You
down,
bet.
slow down.
Zane. No Zane.
If the,
What was your name, baby? Yes. Oh, yes.
if the band directors would come up and help us, that would be great.
We just dropped them all.
Okay.
Keep going.
Jacob Masters, Abigail Morgan, Alex Ortiz, Nick Sullivan, and Brian Barnes.
There you go. Directors, join them, please.
And as I mentioned, for all of the bands, we have 80 students who were selected. You can find a complete list of all of these students in your packet.
Y'all squeeze in now. Squeeze in so we can take pictures. Just pause. Okay. This is time for the paparazzi and mamarazzi. Do your thing. We've got it done. This is done by school.
You don't squat yet.
Here. You scoot in. Perfect.
There you go.
Is that better?
Good job. Okay. Come on, yeah, there you go. Thank you. Mr. Noah's taking care of you. All right. There you go.
Wow.
That's a good-looking bunch of musicians, isn't it? Okay, everybody smile. Look straight ahead first. Okay, now look to your right. Everybody look to your right.
You gotta direct the photography.
Now everybody look to your left. All right, now back to the middle.
All right.
All right, keep looking wherever you need to look. I don't know what to tell you. Just look. We're so appreciative of our band directors preparing our students, getting them ready for this, and representing Belton in such a great way. What a great group. Congratulations. Okay, so that's band. So next is orchestra. So we're going to bring another set of students up for orchestra.
Well, this is a lot of fun. Every year for a while now, I've been able to say we set a new record for the number of all-region middle school orchestra students, and I get to say that again this year. On October 22nd, our middle school orchestra students participated in auditions for the all-region orchestra, and 12 students earned positions in the all-region orchestra, setting a new record. Those students are Jackson Belabragic, Corinne Finley, Helena Brew, and Gwyneth Saxonmeyer from LBMS. From North Belton Middle School, we have Hannah Abraham, Annie Bailey, and Hannah Diggin.
Where's our orchestra students?
That's okay. And from South Belton Middle School, we have Aditi Bott, Kendall Dollar, Julie Johnson, and Kara Shin. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped a name. Also, Brian Barnes from North Belton Middle School.
It's up on the screen.
It is. It's in front of me, too.
There you go. All right, we'll get another picture of these great musicians
And their directors.
and director. What? Oops.
No, we can fix that.
Pull that, we'll replace that one. Pull it, don't let her keep it.
We can fix that.
All right.
You guys. Jason, you gotta get in the
Did we
picture.
mess up the, All right, everybody in? Do we need to scrunch in? Yeah. All right, everybody look to the middle.
There you go.
Look, there you go, that's a little better. Look to the middle. Okay, now look to your right. The other right. Okay, now look to your left. Get back to the middle. Now let's congratulate these students again. All right, so one of the great things about our students in Belton schools is the diversity and the different things we do. We've recognized our musicians, and so now we're going to recognize some robotics teams. Heart of Texas Best Robotics.
The Heart of Texas Best Robotics competition was held in Waco on October 29th, and we had teams from both Belton New Tech High School at Wascow and Belton High School that were competing. Each team built a robot that was capable of carrying out a variety of simulated farm tasks, and we're really excited to celebrate the success of both teams. I'd like to start tonight by telling you about the New Tech team. They won second place in 3 of the competition categories. Those were the team interview and exhibit, the marketing category, and the engineering notebook category.
Come on up. Mr. Crothers has a certificate for you. You want to demonstrate a little bit for us? You know, you're firing up.
If our
Yep.
control is not dead.
Yeah, okay. This is the New Tech group. We're going to bring the other one up too.
He thinks his battery might be dead.
Our controller died.
Okay, all right.
Sorry, everybody.
That's all right.
So we also
Their sponsor.
have our Belton High School team here tonight. They won first place in marketing and third place in the team interview and exhibit. Their robot advanced to the semifinal round of the competition. placing them 4th overall, but critically qualifying them to compete in the first ever Best Robotics Texas UIL state competition, which will be held next month. And we're really excited to see what happens in that competition.
There you go. Come on up. Drive them up. Drive the harvest team up here. Oh, look at there. If you haven't, come on up and y'all crowd up together. We want y'all together in this. Make sure the robots are visible in the picture. And sponsors, please come up. Coach, sorry, I call you Coach. Tony and Steve. There you go. Put the. I like it. I like that. Okay, come on. Y'all know how to take these pictures. I've seen it. Again, take pictures. All right, everybody in? Let me get out of your way. Good looking group. All right, look. I didn't. Sorry, I slacked off. Okay, look to your right. Okay, now look to your left. Now look back to the middle. All right, congratulations. Don't leave. Wait, I want y'all to stay right there, okay? Y'all can take pictures on your own, but y'all hold just a minute for our next recognition, okay?
So each month we celebrate a Big Red community partner that's a person or an organization that's making a difference for students in our schools. And this month we're really excited to celebrate partners for each of our robotics teams who really made a key difference. The robotics season is an intense 6 weeks push from when the competition's announced and the details are all available for the team to begin building their robot to the competition that determines who advances. And there were some key mentors that played a big part in both of these teams' successes. At New Tech, Jeff Callan served as the team's outside advisor, helped construct a practice field. And
You know what? It looks better that way.
And at Belton High School, Donna and Stephen Bednarz played an incredible role. Donna was there, I'm told, just about every night with the team, staying late. And when we talk about the robotics team staying late, we mean late. And Stephen built the team's practice field, which is absolutely key. It's what gives the team an opportunity to learn how to drive and refine driving their robot before the competition.
There's a genuine appreciation. This is representing the community supporting our students and our students working together with the community and the parents and making great things happen when we travel outside of our district and represent Belton. Y'all all did a great job. We're really proud of you. So let's look in the middle here, take a good picture, smile big, be proud, smile, robot. And let's congratulate them again. Yeah, you kind of took them out of order. Okay. And next we want to recognize two of our educators. We're going to do them individually, but consecutively. First, we want to recognize the Belton Rotary Educator of the Quarter. Belton Rotary Club Kellen?
All right.
That's all I got.
We'd love to recognize Jessica Hargrave from Sparta Elementary. She's being recognized by the Belton Rotary Club as the Educator of the Quarter. She's a fifth grade math and science teacher at Sparta. Here she comes. And she's in her 5th year in education and her 3rd year with Belton ISD. Miss Hargrave has a natural gift for teaching. Observing in a room, would make you think that Miss Hargrave has many years of experience. She's very calm, has a very calm demeanor. She prepares exceptional lessons and creates strong relationships with her students. Her principal, Julie Manley, stated, Jessica forms relationships with each student in her class and makes a significant impact on these students by believing in them and pushing them to do their best. I am proud to have Jessica as a teacher at Sparta, and I'm thankful for her dedication and service to education. So congratulations.
Have you been to lunch yet? Have we been to lunch yet? Tomorrow you get to join Merle and Phil, and I don't know whether Leo will be back for lunch. I don't know whether he'll be here, but congratulations. Thank you. Have fun at lunch tomorrow. And also, we'd like to recognize the Temple Rotary Club Educator of the Month.
And we're happy to recognize Vera Russell Dukes as the Temple Rotary Club Educator of the Month. Vera's a 4th grade teacher at Pirtle, and she's in her 31st year in education and her 30th year with the district. Miss Russell Dukes has served as grade level team leader. She's participated in multiple math curriculum committees. She's been honored with several educational awards, including the Temple Daily Telegram Golden Apple and the Elementary Teacher of the Year for the VFW Post 10377 Ladies Auxiliary. Vera has her students set learning goals, scaffolds instruction to meet individual learning needs, and consistently adjust instruction based on her students' performance. Ms. Pam Neves, principal at Pirtle, stated, Ms. Russell Dukes pushes each student to strive for their personal best while providing support and encouragement during the journey. Students leave her fully prepared for 5th grade. It gives me great honor to recognize Vera for her dedication and lifelong commitment to her students. Congratulations.
Congratulations. And I understand you got to have lunch last week with Superintendent?
She did.
Very
We had
nice.
a fun lunch.
Wonderful, congratulations. We're so appreciative of the Belton and Temple Rotary Clubs providing this recognition for our teachers, our educators. Thank you for being here. And we'd like to make special presentation with most importantly, with some serious show and tell.
Serious show and tell. Usually you guys present the awards.
Exactly.
But tonight we're bringing
You've
it
come to
the house.
bring and show and tell us a little bit, so. You need some help?
This is a big deal, national big deal.
This is a big deal.
We've celebrated it some already, but earlier this month, our team representing Leon Heights Elementary School went to Washington, D.C. for the National Blue Ribbon Conference and Awards presentation. What's really cool about this is you had schools from all across the country seeking them out to find out what we're doing here in Belton, what we're doing at Leon Heights, so that they could replicate it in their school, in their community.
So, they got a banner.
We have a plaque with the U.S. Department of Education seal on it.
Nice.
And we have a flag. And so from this point forward, a national blue ribbon flag will always be flown at Leon Heights Elementary. And it has a 2016 symbol on it. And from this point forward, we will always be able to fly this flag. And the honor goes to the school from this point forward. So I think that's pretty cool because it's something that never goes away.
There you go.
Nice.
And we learned a really nice statistic that we are less than 1% of schools in the U.S.
1/2 of 1%.
Yeah, it was actually
Half of
less of half of 1%
There you go.
of schools in the U.S. are able to get this honor each year. And so we just felt like it was really fantastic. And what Randy and Dana and Ms. Jackson and I found out while we were there is that we are doing really great things in Belton ISD. And we got to meet a lot of schools that had a lot of other things, but we realized that what we do here in Belton is about people and kids, and we do it very little, and we do it well. And so we absolutely deserve to be on that national stage at Belton ISD, and we were just proud to be there representing the district. And we just really felt, when we got there, we were like, yeah, we belong here and Belton belongs here. So I want to thank you guys and thank you for the experience.
Awesome.
Very cool. And I might mention, Bluebell came to the school and did a special little ice cream party for every student and everyone at the school for the banner and flag unveiling the other day.
They did. We gave 300 kids Bluebell ice cream.
That's
Then we asked
awesome.
them to sit and be quiet while I could do a presentation. It was fantastic.
And yes, the superintendent's speech.
Yeah, and I asked the superintendent to speak on the fly. I was like, hey, Susan, here, come on.
Yeah, it was great.
Everybody did great. Thank you.
Okay, well, we've had lots to celebrate. I want to just mention a couple other things, just make sure everybody's aware of. A little over a week ago, our Marine Corps Junior ROTC held their annual birthday ball, Marine Corps birthday ball, and recognized our own Phil Haggerty as the honor guest. And it is a great tribute to him, but he also gave a wonderful speech about leadership and what it meant to be a leader, inspiring those students and their families. And I was really, really proud to be there to see you honored, and very thankful for the role model you are to our students. So thank you for that. And I just learned that I should have known. Today's your birthday? Happy birthday. You commented about feeling older today, and I missed the cue. So happy birthday, Phil. I also wanted to thank the Belton FFA partners with the Belton HEB to do the Thanksgiving food rally each year. What a wonderful event. We had a record number of participants this year in teams, and some of us heckled or judged or refereed or something out there, but we had a great time. Wonderful community events supporting us. Thank you to HEB for that. Our Veterans Day celebrations were just tremendous. Got to see our students in several places, but also including, you might not be aware, but the Belton High School Marine Corps Junior ROTC was the color guard leading the Veterans Day Parade at the Killeen Parade. Now that's significant because Killeen has ROTC programs too, but our ROTC was chosen to be at the front, and that was significant, and they did a great job, as they always do. Want to congratulate our by-district Belton Tiger football team, by-district champion Tiger football team, and a special thank you to Chefs for sponsoring our community pep rally last week, and the Gin, who will be sponsoring our pep rally this week on Thursday night. So another great opportunity for our community to come together and support our kids. Okay, and that's it. At this point, unless I've missed something, it is what time is it? Is it really 6:24? Okay, it's 6:24, and we're going to open our public hearing regarding the 2016 School Financial Integrity Rating System of Texas, the first report. Mr. Birthday himself, Mr. ROTC Marine Corps honor guest, Phil Haggerty.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending the 2016 public hearing for the Financial Integrity Rating System of Texas for Belton ISD. The information that we'll be providing to you comes from the 14-15 fiscal year, and we'll go ahead and kind of give you some background on that. Before we get too far along, I'll tell you that Belton ISD's the first rating is 100 out of 100, and so we have a superior rating. So when we get to the end of this, if you were to doze along the way, that'd be fine. To give you a little bit of background, this report was adopted during the 1999 legislature. It was implemented in 2003. The information they used to evaluate us is based on district staff student financial data that's submitted through PEIMS. The name is the Financial Integrity Rating System of Texas, and we just call it FIRST. So it's the first report for the 2016 year. And the idea of this is to achieve quality performance in the management of school districts' financial resources, and a way for the state to manage and monitor us as we go along and do that. In the 83rd legislature, there was a bit of an amendment where they required the Commissioner of Education to include processes that would assist in anticipating the financial solvency of each of the school districts in the state. And This is phase two this year. 2016 is phase two. Phase three will be next year. There's been a change. Phase one last year, there were fewer criteria used to evaluate us. This year, there's 15 indicators. In 2017, there are 15 indicators. The biggest change between those years is the scoring goes from 100 to 70 to get a superior in 2016. It goes from 100 to 90 in 2017, but that's the biggest change between the years. And so we'll briefly run through the indicators. Indicator one basically asks if we submitted our annual financial report to TEA on time. We did. We scored a yes. Indicator 2A asks if we have a unmodified opinion on our annual financial statements. We did. That was a yes. Indicator 2B was asking whether or not the auditors found us to be free of material weakness in internal controls during the audit. We scored a yes on that. Indicator 3 asked if we were complying with all debt agreements. We are complying with all debt agreements. We scored a yes. Indicator 4 asked if we had made all of our payments to external entities like TRS, Texas Workforce Commission, the IRS on time. We do. We get a yes. And indicator 5 is whether or not our unrestricted net assets are greater than zero. They are. So we get a yes for that. That's the end of the indicators, basically glancing at the financial statements to see whether or not we have a decent-looking set of financial statements. The next 10 indicators, we score points on the next 10, and that's where the score will come in. Indicator 6 is asking if we have sufficient cash on hand in order to function at a district. Generally, at the beginning of the year, they would like you to have a minimum of 90 days cash on hand in anticipation of receipts coming in a little bit later in the year, and that allows you to begin the year. We had 92.27 days cash, and so we scored a 10 for having greater than 90. Indicator 7 is asking if our current ratio is greater than 0, of course, which ours are greader than 1, which ours is. Ours is a 3.58, making it greater than 3, score of 10. Of course, all these will be score of 10. And indicator number 8, asking if our long-term liabilities, the ratio of long-term liabilities to total assets is less than 1. Ours is 0.136, which gives us much less than 0.6. And indicator number 9 asks whether or not our revenues are greater than our expenditures with a calculation, and there's a calculation here to arrive at this. And in the calculation, we're 0.0267 or 0.0627. I'll get that out of there in a minute. And so we score a 10 here, indicator 10. We score debt service ratio of less than 1.2 or greater than 1.2, and we're a 9.8316, which shows that we're very strong. Indicator number 11 is something that we monitor on a constant basis, and it's whether or not our administrative cost ratio is less than 10%. And for our ADA of between 5,000 and 9,999 students, because this is the 14-15 data, we had 9,858 students, and we came in at a 0.0953. We continue to monitor that to ensure that we keep our administrative cost ratio low. Indicator number 12 is, did our student enrollment decline? And this is just a calculation to keeping the ratios of teachers to students in line over a 3-year period, and ours did not, so we scored a yes. And indicator 13 is compare PEIMS data to the audited financial statements, making certain or checking to see what the variances are in the data received, either through the audited financial statements and PEIMS. And so we were less than 3% off, so we get the full 10%, which means our PEIMS data and our audited financial data, there doesn't have to be any changing to that. What we're reporting to the state both ways keeps us very close. The data is nearly the same. Oftentimes, audited information may require some adjustments that PEIMS does not require, but in our case, we're following everything closely enough, which it actually should stay within 3%, which we do. Indicator 14 is whether or not the auditors found that we were free of material non-compliance with grants and contracts and various other legal documents, which we were free of material noncompliance. I love double negatives, but it means that we were correct in what we did and we did not have any noncompliance. Indicator 15 is we did not have to reschedule any of our repayments to the foundation school program due to financial hardship. In other words, we were not in a money crunch and asked the state to delay some of our repayments in the event we needed to repay. We did not have to do that, so we got the full 10 points, which here we see the results. Belton ISD received a 100 out of 100, which is can be demonstrated in our business office with Carol and Deanna and everyone else that worked very hard to make sure that we stay there, and they do it year after year and get all sorts of thanks and accolades and pats on the back, all kinds of calls in the morning, wishing them a happy good morning and that sort of thing. But all the work pans out. And so here we are. As we look at the 2017, the phase 3 of the first report, you can see that the grading goes from 2016 on the far right there at 70 to 100, over to 90 to 100 to be superior. We have every intention of being at the 100 again next year, and so we'll continue to work on that. One other area we have to look at here, and this is in the administrative cost ratio, you can see, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, that once we go over 10,000 ADA, which would be the 15-16 school year, the administrative cost ratio requirement shrinks up rather quickly. We're monitoring that, managing it, and we expect to be to score 10 points there. And so there shouldn't be any changes with that. With all that being said, that's the public hearing for the first report for Belton ISD for 2016. Does anyone have any questions or any comments they would like to make?
Any questions or comments from
From
anyone?
the audience?
Any questions or comments from the board?
Good job.
There you go. I echo Amanda's enthusiasm. This is something we've come to expect, but it is still a big deal, and kudos to you and all of your staff on a job well done. Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
good stewards of our public
Thank you.
money. Okay, at this time then, whatever time it is, 6:33, we will adjourn the public hearing and move on. Next item on our agenda is public comments. Anyone wishing to address the board? I didn't see anybody sign up. No takers? Any takers? Hearing no takers, we'll move to the consent agenda. Any of the board members have any item you'd like pulled for discussion? Hearing none, let me identify those items. We have the minutes of the October 17th, 2016 regular meeting, the unaudited financial report for the month ending October 31st, 2016. We have gifts, grants, and bequests of less than $1,000. That's on page 120. And would just call attention, we recognized our robotics teams and a couple at least of our community partners, but as you can see, a number of community folks have contributed to their success, and so we're very appreciative of that. This doesn't require any action, but information purposes only. And then we have other revenues of at least $1,000 but less than $10,000. This is to approve the vendor list. I'm sorry, said that wrong. I jumped ahead. The other revenues of at least $1,000 but less than $10,000 include McLean Company, Inc. donated $2,500 to Belton High School in support of the Academic Awards Banquet. And McLean Advanced Technologies, LLC, donated 52 computer monitors, 25 docking stations, and 25 keyboards valued at $5,000 to BISD Technology inventoried for use across the district. We're very appreciative of those donations. Now, we have the supply equipment service bids, the janitorial and school nutrition supplies bid 1617909. 142 to approve the vendor list. Contract will expire November 30th, 2017. Then we have the annual investment report and policy review and adoption of resolution regarding the review of the investment program. Again, thank you for taking care of that and doing such a good job on that. That is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve? Have a motion, Mr. Carruthers? Second from Ms. Winkler. All in favor of the motion, raise a hand. Passes unanimously. Let's move to the superintendent's report.
Okay, first I want to talk to you a little bit about our district PEEM snapshot data. You saw a little bit of a preview of that from Trent earlier with Templeton demographics. But our official snapshot date was October the 28th, and we have until December the 1st to submit that data to the Texas Education Agency, so we're still reviewing it and refining it. But currently, our data shows that we had 11,119 students on October 28th. That was up about 257 students over last year. 45% of our students are economically disadvantaged, 8% are military connected, 54% are white, 33% are Hispanic, 7% are African American, 2% are Asian, and then we have about 4% of our student population who claims 2 or more races. And then some other groups to point out, we currently have about a 40% at-risk population, and those are based on PEIMS indicators that are state indicators that we monitor closely in curriculum and instruction, and our C&I staff took some extra due diligence to check that data this year. About 9% of our students are considered gifted and talented, and 11% of our students are coded as special education. And then campus update presentations. As you know, it's been a tradition for my team to visit campuses and departments in the fall to update our employees about what's happening across the district and to thank them for their hard work. This year, we're going to start those visits the week that we get back from Thanksgiving. I believe Mr. Pittenger has a schedule there. And I just wanted to let you know that we're going to do those visits a little bit different this year. They're going to look different and feel different. In the past, the update has been a presentation that I've led. This year, in an effort to provide a more interactive discussion with our employees, it's going to be more of a conversation with our employees that's facilitated by the campus principal or the department head that we're visiting. And then I will be visiting and answering questions from our employees. So we're going to try that this time, and I'm looking forward to hearing what questions our employees have about what's going on around the district. So I'm also looking forward to celebrating some of the great things that our employees have done this year, and just really expressing appreciation like we like to do when we go out and visit and let our staff know that they're valued.
It's real important that we try and have a board member at all of those. I'm going to be gone out of town the first week, and so especially those, if you could sign up, make sure we have those all covered. It's good to have it. It's good for us to hear what's going on. It's a great opportunity to connect. Especially encourage you to go to campus maybe you haven't been to before, but great opportunity to do that. So.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, academic UIL, our middle school academic UIL will be held on December the 2nd and December the 3rd. We'll be at North Belton Middle School with Midway Middle School also participating this year. We're expecting a total of approximately 180 students who will be participating in 17 events. At the elementary level, our events will be held at Lakewood Elementary on December the 7th and 10th with about 26 events, and we expect to have 375 students participating. And then, as you heard earlier this evening, our high school academic UIL competitions have begun, and our students are having success so far. You heard about Tyree Ransom, who took 3rd place at the Regional Congress and advanced to the state competition, which will be held in January the 9th through the 11th, with Sarah Baston serving as an alternate for that event. In addition, our high school academic UIL team competed in Pflugerville. Caden Nutley, you might remember from last year, took 1st place in accounting and went to nationals last year. He took 1st place at this competition, and another one of our students came in 2nd, Jacob Kyle.
Great.
And then we had several other students who placed in the top 6 of their events, including events in copy editing, calculator apps, and literary criticism. And some of those students were 9th and 10th graders, I might add.
So there's no, I don't remember. Chris, help me out. You took a picture of them. The group that went off, and I forgot what they're called. Saturday, they went off to a competition, the teacher.
Future Educators.
Group, and they came back did
And
very
they've
well. They're
advanced to
advancing to
state, yes.
That's different than UIL.
That is different.
It's a different group, but
That's a CTE organization. And then finally, you heard earlier, but I want to emphasize it again, that the Belton High School robotics team is advancing to the regional best competition in Dallas, December 8th through the 10th, and this is the pilot year for that as a UIL event. And so we're very proud of that Belton High School team. And then food truck update, the B-Town Express, we call it a food truck, but it's food bus, right? But we still managed to call it a truck. But the B-Town Express Cafe has been in use now for about 6 weeks. And it is alternating on Mondays. It's going from alternating to the different middle schools. On Tuesday, it's at New Tech. On Wednesday, we have it at Belton High School 9. And then on Thursday and Friday, it goes to Belton High School. Our students have enjoyed the new lunch option. It's provided them with the opportunity to have a meal that has larger portions, and that's something different that they enjoy, and also provides them the opportunity not to have to wait as long in a regular school cafeteria line. Susan D'Amico, I want to thank her. This has really been a great project with a lot of learning because it's so new and innovative. We had 3,695 meals so far that have been served from the bus. And in total, that's an increase in about 600 meals overall from what we would have served as a combined at those locations, or about 100 new meals a week overall. So we took some of the cafeteria business to the food bus, but we're still up, and our students are getting some other benefits. And also, we've had some benefits here in this building with having the food truck available right here outside of the administration building. While we've had staff training here, we've been able to feed for special meetings, and that's been a success. So we're continuing to work on getting more students interested in eating on the food truck, and Susan and her staff are continuing to explore some new menu options as well to see what the kids like. So it's gone well. And then finally, the District of Innovation planning process, and Sue, you can chime in with anything you want. We held our first meeting with the committee on October the 26th. We reviewed the purpose and requirements of District of Innovation, and then we took lots of plans from across the state and dissected those to make sure we understood what the requirements were for one, but also what that might look like and what some of the exceptions from the education code that districts were asking for. And so that was a very good meeting, I thought. And then last week, Deanna Lovesmith and I attended the District of Innovation Institute in Mansfield to see what else we could learn. Didn't learn a whole lot of new stuff, but we confirmed that we were on the right track with the process that we had outlined, and it gave us some time in the car to think about our local plan and think about things that we would want to do in the district. And then finally, I wanted to mention that this Wednesday is our next meeting with our committee here at the administration building, and then Angela Tikel, our general counsel, is scheduled to attend a session with TASB on Friday. And so we're monitoring District of Innovation closely. We think the legislature may do some things with it during this session, and so we want to keep our eye on it and get as much information as possible. And that's all I have. You want to add about anything about that, Sue?
No, well, the only thing I would add was quite interesting reviewing the different plans, and it's nice to know that we will have the flexibility to kind of just mold what we need for our kids and our situation. So looking forward to continuing those conversations.
Great, thank you for being there.
Absolutely.
questions? Thanks, Susan. All right, Todd, we don't have any action to take, but you got any information for us on personnel?
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, I figured I'd be standing up here saying there is no report this month, and that would be my report. But since then, though, we have received 4 resignations. You can see there in your packet. So we're working diligently in trying to find replacements for those positions. We do have 4 positions that are mid-year resignations that we're working on, and then we have one for that we received for the end of the year, too. So
Yeah, that's an early retirement notice.
it's an early retirement notice, yes, sir.
Unusual. Okay, thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it. Okay, Jennifer. Jennifer Douglas is here once again. When Jennifer's here, she's always here to bring us good news. Today, you just got news. I don't
Just
know.
news,
Well,
just
yeah, What
news.
is it?
Yeah,
Is it
let's-
good, bad, or just weird?
Let's call it
news?
indifferent. So we've been looking at for the past couple of years what your debt capacity would be, assuming you want to call an election next year in 2017 for the projects that you've been looking at for quite some time now. So we've been updating you for the past couple of years and have another update tonight. I'm not going to go over this. We've been over this a number of times, so you know all that. Okay, one thing that we'll point out, and let me actually skip ahead. So debt capacity here on this last bullet is largely determined by the interest rate on the bonds, your existing debt profile, which means when your other bonds pay off, we don't really have a window because you've been pretty consistent about issuing bonds, so there's not like, in 10 years, all your debt's gone, and we would have a window there to be able to borrow without increasing the tax rate. State assistance that we'll get into a bit more in some future slides. And then the taxable assessed valuation of the district. After 2008 and the economic downturn, we had a bit of a slow period of growth here, but the growth has started to rebound. So that's something that we'll talk about as well. But that first bullet there, interest rate on the bonds, nothing else has really changed in our projections. And even what we're showing you tonight, nothing has changed too much from what we've shown you in the past year. But number one may be changing.
Could be. That's the news.
So, yeah, since last week, there has been the election on Tuesday, there has been a approximately 40 basis points or 0.4% increase in interest rates. We would certainly expect that after any presidential election, there will be uncertainty in the market. That's not unusual in the least. The markets did not expect for Trump to win, so there's been a little bit more uncertainty simply because they were caught off guard. And now what they're trying to do, there haven't been detailed economic policies that have been necessarily circulated in the market. So as they try and digest what this may mean in terms of financial policies, you will see, really until we have a bit more detail, maybe rates a little bit higher and holding for the near term. Obviously, we're not talking about selling bonds prior to the inauguration in January. Hopefully by early next year, we'll have a little bit more information to go on. But I guess just to say is an increase of 40 basis points is certainly not unheard of. But a lot of this will depend on the economic policies that come out of Washington in the near term as to what we think may or may not happen. There's certainly been discussions about potentially lowering taxes, which is a great thing for all Americans. It's sort of bad for municipal bonds in the sense that your bonds are exempt from federal income taxation, which increases the attractiveness of them to an investor. There's also been some discussions in the early stages, of course, it's all rumor at this point, about potentially eliminating the tax exemption and having other vehicles to fund infrastructure. So we just don't know. And so until we have a little bit more information, there'll be some uncertainty. So all that to say that for the short term, we're going to kind of keep it where we have it because we have a little bit of cushion in terms of rate, but something to keep our eye on for the next, say 6 months or so. Hopefully things will stabilize sooner than they change. Obviously the Dow Jones stabilized very quickly, so hopefully our market will follow course in the near term. Okay, so your new financing capacity is essentially the same as it was when we talked last year. It's about 150 million between two elections, and we'll talk about, one election, two separate issuances. That would mean bringing you all the way up to the 50-cent state mandated cap on debt service. So that 150 million would take us from the current tax rate of 27 cents up to 50 cents. This is very hard to read, so I apologize in advance for everyone trying to look at it. I think kind of as I've been talking to you the last couple of years too, it's become even harder for me to read, so I'm probably in a in a position where we may need to start doing that a little bit more. So what we essentially have here is two issuances. The first would occur, this assumes a November election, I'll say. So November of 17 election, there's a little bit of difference between a November election and a May election. Not to encourage you to do anything before you want to, but a May election just gets you a little bit of state assistance sooner. So I don't want to go into too much detail on that because I think, probably what should drive you is when you need the money and what your plans are. But if you were to call a May election as opposed to a November election, we would be able to qualify in the upcoming biennium, so the legislative session that takes place on January of 2017, we'd be able to go ahead and qualify our new issue for existing debt allotment or state assistance. Currently, you get about a third of your debt service repaid by the state. If we were to issue bonds before the state ends its fiscal year in August 31 of 2017, we would immediately qualify for assistance up to a third or whatever your level comes out to be next year on the new issue. So it gets you about a year of assistance. It's not something I would say that would break the bank one way or the other, but it is helpful, so just something to keep in mind. But this is assuming November. So November obviously is we're not getting that assistance, so this is, I think, a good place to start. So it would be a first issue of $100 million. We tried to break it up into several smaller issuances to maybe match more so of what you need, but really this is the most efficient method to borrow. So the first one would be $100 million in 2018, followed by $50 million in 2019. Did you have a question?
Not yet.
Okay. That again brings us up to approximately 50 cents and kind of keeps you there for a little while. I won't go into this. The data is there. It hasn't changed too much, but we'll talk a little bit more about what all of this says. Okay, so one thing that's a little bit different than past elections is that we are assuming how the district has been, and this is 5 years prior or more, accounting for frozen revenues, which have actually, for you guys, gone up a little bit. So the frozen revenues, because of some guidance from the appraisal district, were not being used to offset the current year's debt service payment. So in kind of talking with staff a little bit, we've decided that that's not the best approach for you, because what would happen is that you wouldn't use that money to offset the debt payment, and then immediately you'd have additional funds being put into the debt service sinking fund that you could then use to defease debt, but not to lower the tax rate in the first place. So we're now taking out that cushion. We're now including that. To get you more capacity as well as a more accurate representation of what the tax rate would be. We've assumed that your tax base will grow 5% for 3 years and then 1.5% thereafter. The 1.5% is our guess, just like anybody else's guess. It's obviously very conservative because you've been growing at about 2.5% for the last 5 years. Of course, that includes the 2008 economic downturn. More recently, you grew at a little over 5% last year. So anyway, just to point out that that is conservative. It assumes declining state assistance, and we'll talk more about that. So the state assistance is a pretty, again, you're receiving about a third of your debt service is being repaid by the state. That's obviously a third is a big chunk of it. If we had more state assistance or were able to guarantee that we would have that going forward, your capacity would be not larger, because we are currently using current year figures to determine capacity, but what it would mean is that tax rate would drop a lot sooner and allow for future capacity sooner. So the interest rates that we're assuming on here, 30-year bonds, the $100 million in Series 18 would be a 4.25%, we'll call it, followed by a little bit higher in 2019, because again, we assume interest rates will go up to 4.4. Currently, the question I guess would come, since we've had an increase in rates over the last week, how does that compare to the current rates? Currently, we'd used about 100 basis points in cushion, or one percentage point in cushion, because we don't know what's going to happen. So currently, we're actually closer to 3.5% now, and again, we still have 4.23%. So we're still in good shape on the interest rate.
Is there a way to, what does that translate into tax impact for us? Can you get that math all the way out?
So if it were to be 3.5% as opposed to 4.23%?
Yeah, or something like that.
It'd be pretty minimal. The interest rate is not going to be, in the short term, it's, where you start to see it is more toward the out years when we've had that amortizing for 30 years. In the short term, it's not going to make a huge difference. Again, you've always planned conservatively, so no changes there. So I know one point of concern for everyone is that if we go ahead and we ask the voters for $150 million and we do the projects that we have, are we maxed out? Can we not borrow again, until the end of times or something? So essentially, the answer in our model is you're not going to be able to borrow until 2031. Now, let me come back and talk a little bit more about our model. Again, we're only assuming 1.5% growth, which is essentially inflationary growth in your tax base. The tax base is going to be the biggest driver of your capacity. So we're only assuming 1.5% because we don't know if there'll be another 2008 economic downturn. We'd rather be conservative and look better. And then the state assistance. We are assuming that your state assistance declines to the point where you have no state assistance in about 7, 8, 9, 10 years. Need to look at the figure, but it's not a very long period of time. We're not experts in state assistance, and that's not because we believe the state will come in and change their formulas. It's simply because your trend is that you're growing more, your tax base has been growing. And as your tax base grows, your state assistance would logically go down unless your enrollment exceeded the growth in your tax base. So you've been in a position the last couple of years where it's been pretty equal to where you've kind of stuck around a third. You haven't really gone up, you haven't gone down. So we can't make those forecasts. If we have a demographer or someone from OCASE or the state to come in and help you with that, we can make those guesstimates. But to put them in the model would probably be pretty risky to be able to do. So it's showing future capacity is limited.
But historically, what we've seen is, I mean, the reason we need to borrow money to build new schools is because we're having enrollment growth. We don't have enrollment growth.
Exactly.
We would need the new schools, so.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's a reasonable,
And that's on our next page here is that if our model, again, we're not demographers, so we can't, our guess is not any better than anybody else's. But the third bullet here is that basically, one of the bullets in there, if our assumptions are correct, you don't need to borrow in the future because you don't have any growth to, no kids to put in those new buildings. So realistically, if you have the growth to where you need new facilities, it should be able to pay for itself in terms of additional state assistance. And so, for example, just to kind of get to the point, that fourth bullet there, of what the state assistance going from 33% to 10% to 0 means in terms of actual tax rate. So in 2021, which is probably around the time you might start looking at something else, I'm not sure, but I know that's probably getting you a little bit farther down the road. Our model currently shows the tax rate in 2021 at 49.98 cents, so call it 50 cents. You're maxed out in 2021. But if your state assistance remained at the current level of 33%, no changes, not going up or not going down, but just staying where it is, you would actually at that point have a 37.5 cent tax rate as opposed to our 50-cent tax rate. So that already buys you quite a bit of capacity.
but, so Jennifer, I guess what I'd say is, I mean, that seems more logical to assume that, because the demographer's report that we just looked at earlier shows it's going to continue to climb, and so that's why we have to look at building schools. And
Right.
so the great unknown is what the legislature will do with EDA and IFA funding, but we're going to continue to grow.
Yeah, so I would say really where our models are accurate is in the very near term.
Yeah.
Once we start getting out 5, 10 years,
Right.
don't take it, just take it at,
But
there's
the
no
point of that
value to
is,
you.
and I appreciate that fourth bullet point, because that basically says that's where the capacity for the next, I'm looking behind you, the same thing
It's
that's
like-
up there, sorry. It's easier for me to look at
No,
that.
no, good.
That there will be capacity.
If there's not capacity, you have no need
If
for the
there's no
buildings.
capacity, we would have had no growth, and we wouldn't need
Exactly.
capacity anyway.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
Okay.
Correct. So, yes, sir.
Question, so the third that we're getting right now is state funding. Our current, we're at 27% is our effective tax rate, correct?
27 cents, correct.
27%. Now, are we getting, is that the effective tax rate including the third, or we need the
Yes.
third off of that?
No, the 27 cents is your share. If you didn't have the state paying for a third of debt service, it'd be closer to, 35 cents, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Okay, so the 50 cents where we're capped out is actually an effective tax rate if the funding stayed the same of 37.54%?
Say that again, I'm
No.
sorry.
that's if
No.
the state doesn't reimburse it.
Yeah, and there's two things. So what we're talking about here in future capacity is different than what we're talking about in terms of what your current capacity is. Your current capacity is 150 million, and we are allowed, under the state model, because they're very restrictive on how you can do this, to assume your current level of state funding.
Okay.
So the $150 million assumes you're still getting a 30-year debt service repaid by the state. So it doesn't change the 150 that you can borrow now. It just changes how quickly you have additional capacity.
So the first year, well, it wouldn't be, because in your model, you were doing $100 million and then delaying another 50.
Yeah,
so
it
it's not
wouldn't start to
exactly-
drop until
That's where
probably
you have to look at this chart and figure out.
2020,
But when
you know.
we're marketing a bond, can we market it at a 37-cent tax rate versus a 50-cent tax rate?
No, we've well, we could. and
You're immediately gonna go up.
We've always said worst-case scenario, which I think you've got some information about.
Well,
a little bit
yeah,
later,
and that's the last slide, or one of the last slides, but, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but you will still go up to 50 cents. So this will be kind of a first for Belton, because unless you outpace the growth we have in the tax base in the near term, which you probably won't be much over that, you will still go up to 50 cents because you will not receive state assistance with a November election on the new bonds until 2 years after. So you won't qualify if you sell in November or pass the bond in November until the next biennium, which means in 2019. So the 2018
But it-
year will go up to 50.
But if you do a May election, you gain 2 years?
You get a year earlier, yeah. Because with the May election, we can
Sell
sell, and there's also a
by-
little bit of different timing
in August,
issues.
right.
Exactly, yeah. So if we have a November election, if we have a November election, we actually can't sell, I mean, we sell the bonds in February of 18. We can't sell in 17 because
Depends on how
obviously
much you sell.
it'll be too late for that. But we sell in February of 18, and we won't have a payment in 18 because you've already levied your tax rate for
So-
18, so it sets you a whole year behind.
Yeah, so.
It's kind of an
but
awkward
it also means
timing.
you raise your tax rate a year earlier, also. by
Yes,
doing that.
yeah, good
So,
point. Yep, a May
I mean,
election means that the taxpayers pay a year earlier.
You start paying a year earlier. I don't know whether this is the right point. I was trying to figure out where to put this question in. You said in your modeling you were doing 100 million and then a 50 million. Is there a reason for that kind of a split for issuance costs or pricing the bonds? Are they better if you, 100 seems like a lot. If it was 50, would it be issuing cost raise or
And that's
harder to
always.
sell, or what's the thinking
Yeah,
on
that's
that?
always a very valid question. Do we want to break this up into several smaller issuances, or go ahead and do what we can? One thing that would drive it would be, do you have a project in the first phase that costs $100 million? I mean, if there's, a high school somewhere in there, we can't get around that it's probably going to be a bigger ticket item that we need to be able to fund. So we were trying to kind of get you with that in mind as well, that you may need the money up front. But secondly, when we do sell the first phase, presumably that would be again in early 18 with a November 17 election, we start that clock in terms of state assistance on that EDA. So oftentimes it does make sense to go ahead and sell, if we think interest rates are good at the time, go ahead and lock in a low interest rate and start the clock ticking on getting that EDA earlier.
So, but in theory, and again, we're using somewhat hypothetical, so we're not there yet in terms of how much we need, but if it was, we'd have some flexibility whether we sold 50 million of it or 75 or 100 based on, because we're not gonna,
It's entirely at your discretion.
but it
yeah.
also gives us some flexibility in terms of trying to time the market better or wait out on a
Absolutely.
swing or something.
Yeah, and then it's a question that we always come into, and sometimes with districts that do receive a lot of state assistance, we'll go ahead and sell more earlier to get the state paying that earlier as well. But if it's a district that doesn't receive some state assistance, they may try and break it up into smaller phases.
So for us, that's just something we're gonna have to.
And there are
monitor.
issuance
You're gonna have to
costs.
advise us on that. The
Yeah.
That's why I was asking about issuance costs. Does that
When we're
take
talking
away
about.
some of the advantage of splitting it?
A couple of things. So on the issuance cost, each time we sell, there are issuance costs. We'll call the issuance cost usually about 1% of the bond. So it's not a huge number, but it's still, for $100 million, could be several $100,000 in issuance costs that you're paying. So that is a consideration. If you think you're going to come back in 6 months and sell the second piece, let's go ahead and maybe lump it in together and save on those issuance costs. The other thing is that we don't want to go ahead and borrow $100 million if you only need $25 million, because immediately the clock starts ticking and we're paying interest on $100 million, probably, unless something changes, earning next to nothing in the bank where it's being held. So we really want to, really it comes down to that we borrow when we need it.
Right. So what I heard you say is there may be some advantages to backing up 6 months and doing a May, but there's some disadvantages to that also, obviously.
Well, the taxpayers have an earlier year, yeah, like you said.
However, that's But it's really not when it's passed, it's when the bonds are sold that is the trigger, right? Not,
Well, yes,
I
exactly.
mean, we could do,
Yeah.
we can do a May election and not sell the bonds till next January.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's when they're
Anyway.
sold,
Don't
but
you have to have everything done by August of 2017 to get the state
To
funding?
get the state funding,
Yes,
right.
yeah.
So,
Yes.
right, right.
yeah, so that, and then also to be able to have your tax rate set
Right.
appropriately so we can make sure we're able to have a payment in the first year. So, but it doesn't matter
There's a
when you
lot of
call the
options in that, I
election.
guess.
Yeah, there's a ton of options, but it doesn't matter, you're right, when you call the election, it's when you sell it,
You can only have an election in May and November, but you can sell bonds anytime.
anytime.
Is there a preferred time? Historically, obviously, you can't predict.
Yeah, I mean, they'll
future,
say in
but-
the stock market there are better times, but for us, not so much. I mean, we often try and
We're
avoid, say,
guaranteed, So,
we often try and avoid the times right after the bond election because there will be other districts out there in the market also.
Right.
Most people hurry once they pass a bond election and try and sell immediately because they need it immediately. So we would try and avoid, say, July, because there may be a lot of other districts in the market in July and people are just getting tired of Texas PSF paper. So we would try and take the market when we had the most attention in the market. But around the holidays are obviously bad, but for the
Sure.
most part, there's not any one time that we could point to and say it's better
those
or
who are gonna
worse.
buy these are planning, they see them coming anyway.
Yeah, and they're going to be, unless something changes in the tax code, it's going to be mostly insurance companies, mutual funds, people of that nature. And once they know you're coming with particularly maybe a big issue, they'll kind of set up their calendars to know, well, we want to bid on Belton in a couple of weeks, so we're going to pass on XYZ district.
So, if we issue a bond election in November, if it doesn't pass and we go to May, are we still have enough time to get the schools done that we need done?
So that's a Jared
Yeah.
question when Jared presents.
That's
We'll
next.
talk about timeline of schools, yeah.
But that is obviously a good question,
Really good question.
and I wish I could help you with
I
it.
have two questions for Jared in the queue.
So just kind of skipping ahead. Unless you want to address that now, do you
No,
want to? Okay.
go ahead, because this is a great slide. I like
So
it.
on this one, just to show a little bit of how conservative we generally are, there's been a couple of factors that have changed that we'll discuss. But in 2003, these are the last few elections that you've had. In 2003, we told the voters it'd be 13.5 cents. It actually came out to be 7.6 cents.
And that was because we did conservative, assuming no state aid.
That's right. The state aid was the big driver on
So this kind
that
of really
one.
goes back to Jeff's question earlier. That's the difference between assuming no state aid and getting state aid, and a really good interest rate, as I recall. from that one,
Yeah,
too,
good
but-
memory, yeah. So that is absolutely correct. Mostly that's driven by the interest rate being better than we expected and largely the state aid. It was a legislative year in 2003, so we were able to take that benefit of the state assistance immediately.
Timing is everything.
2006 wasn't a legislative year, so we had to again wait. So it was an 8.3 cent increase that we anticipated. It actually came in at 8 cents. And what we don't have on here is that in general, the next year, you continued to decline in all of these, so that after a couple of years, you're maybe half of what you told the voters. But either way, we can show that we've never exceeded what we told the voters, and in most cases, you're well improved over it. Again, 2009 was a legislative year. We told the voters 5.4 cents. It came out to actually be 1 cent because we got that state assistance immediately. 2012, not a legislative year, 11.7 cents, and you came in at 11.5 in year one, but then in the next year, you were able to immediately drop by 4.5 cents.
Okay, somebody who has a really good memory, remind me which of those were May and which were November. Those were different. Back in
The
2003, we could do it at a different time.
2003, you could do it any time, and I don't
I don't
remember.
when it was,
It was
actually, but,
February of '04, I believe,
Okay.
because we pulled that up last week.
okay, so they're different
Yeah, they
times.
changed the law
But
to-
legislative year,
December, we called
Kicking
it
in
like
that
in December.
state funding
and
number.
Like December 24th or something.
2003.
People used to always do
Called it
those,
at
like,
this-
yeah.
at the Christmas
Not in
year.
not in this community, but in other communities, they would always try and do it at a time when they thought.
2009 was November, 2009, I remember that.
And 12 was May. I'm
It
pretty-
was May.
12
yeah.
was May.
It doesn't make too much difference. The only other thing about November that makes it a little awkward is that first year, because again, you haven't levied it.
right.
We'll sell in February, you've already levied the taxes for that year, so that means our first payment, interest payment, it has to be a year.
Right.
So it just makes the first payment quite big, but you've got a little fund balance that you can use to offset that, so I wouldn't make that a driving concern.
That's why we need a fund balance, so that we, for those very reasons.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so again, it's always a moving target. As we get closer, we'll be able to refine this, as we always say. But we are getting closer, and it's kind of sticking around the $150 million. So I don't think we're going to, in the next 6 months, see it, get to 175. But by the same token, unless something really unusual happens in the bond markets, I don't think we're going to drop too much below that 150 either. And one thing about your phasing it as well, that one benefit to phasing would be we might be able to avoid hitting 50 cents altogether if you were to break it up into smaller issues over a period of years.
And that's pretty high priority for me, I've said all along.
Yeah.
That's a cap, but that's a long way up there, so.
So if you were to do 50 million first and then 50, yeah.
And as we see enrollment continue to grow and taxable values continue to increase, we'll never get there, would be our hope.
It'd be ideal, to not have to hit the 50 cents for everyone. But we are in a legislative year again, so we haven't heard anything with regards to state funding that may change
And
us.
that's the great unknown is what the legislature, in an ideal world, the Supreme Court would have made the legislature level the playing field, but we still can hope that they could do the right thing for our taxpayers, but.
Well, I know revenues are down overall a little bit this year, so they're not where they necessarily had hoped they would be due to
theory.
oil prices.
But-
Y'all can run for the legislature. Yeah, we don't see too many. Again, I saw that the lieutenant governor proposed lowering tax rates again, so hopefully they won't come back and hit you on the homestead the way you had in the last session, which I know hurt Belton a little bit because you have lots of rooftops. So, but again, those are all out there and something to keep in mind that may
There are
alter
certainly ways
this.
they can lower the tax rate and help our taxpayers by fully funding EDA.
Absolutely,
That's
yeah.
the logical thing,
Yeah.
if they actually funded what is on the books.
So it's always a wild
That-
card.
I'll give them full credit if they'll do that.
Hopefully we will, hopefully there'll be no harm. Maybe we get something a little relief-wise. So that's the end of my presentation. If y'all have
Thank you,
questions,
Jennifer.
I'm
Anybody
going to
else
stick
have,
around.
Jennifer, question? Well, hang out.
Yeah, I'll be here.
Jared might
Yeah,
have
I'll
some
be
really
here.
good
Yeah.
stuff to come on, yeah. Speaking of home, okay, so what?
So what?
We're glad you're here.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me here. So I have the pleasure tonight of presenting to you the High School 2 progress that we've had to date. Joining me here tonight is Amy Jones with our firm, and then a new face here, Rebecca Richter. She's been helping with the high school planning process as well as we.
I guess I could have said Amy could. I could have pitched those questions to Amy, huh? So we could have-
She's still available to answer. Okay. So tonight, I get to present, I'm going to present two segments to you. So the first segment is really where we're at in the high school planning process and some of the processes to date. And then the second half is what I'm calling high school considerations. So it's kind of getting out the crystal ball a little bit and looking towards the future. I want to kind of run you through some of the thought processes here as we draw close to presenting information about the high school and how decisions you make about bonding capacity will then in turn affect the high school. So with that, I'll get started. So to remind you about the process, so right now we're contracted here in the next year or so to get through schematic design. And so that's really broken up into two parts. One is the programming effort, which is really talking about the ideal high school, how large it is, really getting into the master plan of the site of how we might phase a project, as well as starting to look at the site and the approach and adjacencies and those type of elements. And we plan to bring you a lot of that information here in December to be able to help inform and ultimately leading towards a decision in January where that will kick off the schematic design process. And schematic design is then taking all those parts and pieces and starting to look at an actual design where we'll look at the floor plan, site plan, and really the exterior of the building. And that will inform a potential cost and help inform your bond planning process along the way. So in that programming effort, we've been meeting with a lot of Belton ISD staff and administration, and so we've met with the Executive Project Committee 3 times so far. That's 8 administrators and staff. And we have another meeting here this Wednesday, so we're continuing along that process. There in the midst, we met 10 times with user groups, and so that's very specifically with teachers of science, teachers of English, athletics, all the different kind of departments within the district, and we basically were able to talk with over 49 people within the district. So a lot of input along the way to really understand how the high school number 2, what it means to be comprehensive, what the vision is as we're moving forward, and then as well as we had a really good meeting with Specialized Public Finance and Jennifer to really kind of discuss bond strategies and kind of where she was understanding what was happening within the financial marketplace and how that's playing into our project. Also along with that, we were able to go on some school tours here in Central Texas. So we went around the greater Austin area, went through 5 schools, took about 10 hours, so a full day, 200 miles, 10,000 steps. And for those who joined us, some got unique beverages along the way. That was a new experience for some, so.
That
Yes,
was
coffee.
me. They were messing with me.
Yeah.
Chris.
And so really from this information and kind of where we're headed is to develop that ideal facility program. So when we look at Belton Roadmap for 2025, we talk about a comprehensive high school for 2,500 students. Really our goal is to understand what is made up in that in terms of number of classrooms, what kind of CTE are we supporting, is there an auditorium, how large is it? Getting into then what we call emerging student-centered concepts, and that's kind of ideas that you're seeing at Belton High School, in the library and the media lab there you see in the top picture. Starting to get into the approach for site design and the macro building organization, about how the big parts kind of fit together within the design. And that's really informing how we're moving forward in terms of the design of the building and leading into schematic design. So that's where we're at in the process. Any questions on that? Not yet? Okay.
The
Went
big
too far.
question.
Yep. So the second half of the presentation. So I've spent quite a few hours researching the information, so I'm about to intersect the demographics, the financials, and the design of the high school. We're going to go through about 20 to 25 slides, so there's a lot of information, so please feel free to ask any questions along the way, because there's a lot of information as we go through here. Apparently, it's on auto advance. But here we are with high school considerations, and again, what we're looking at is how the bonding amount affects the size of the high school, the size of the elementary school, maybe the materials and systems that go in there. And so the one question I'd ask y'all to think about is, as we go through this, is what considerations should you look at when choosing a bond amount? So what is that bottom line dollar, and how that affects the elementary school and the high school? And so what you see here is a very kind of quick snapshot of what a bond program may be comprised of. So I'm going to start at the bottom of $150 million max. So we just heard from Jennifer, that would be the maximum amount Belton ISD could build within this bond. And so then within each one of those line items above, you would fill in the number to total to that $150 million in this case. So as you change the number at the bottom, you in turn need to change the numbers above that. And so there's a lot of considerations, again, when we look at demographics, finance, and the high school moving forward. So earlier tonight, want to start in on the demographic side, which you heard from Templeton. And what I want to key in on is how this is impacting the facility decisions along the way. And so what you see here in front of you is the graph of the demographic information from 2015 through 2025. And so it's broken into the 3 segments for elementary, middle, and high school. And the key numbers on here are in each one of those segments, the top line, which is enrollment, and then the bottom line, which is capacity. And so that is really specifying how many students we have in the district and how many students can we hold. And so when you look over this 10-year time period, we see that in 2019, the number of students at the elementary school level exceed the 5,600 capacity, and we would need to address that. In the same year, you'd start seeing middle school start to exceed the capacity of existing middle schools, and then 2021, you see at the high school level, you're starting to exceed. And this is, of course, what really formulated Belton 2025, that there's something that we need to do in terms of building an elementary school, repurposing BHS 9, and looking at a new comprehensive high school. And so as we look at that, very specifically, you start seeing that then in 2019, the plan is to open a new 800-student elementary school and address that capacity. BHS 9 becomes repurposed as a middle school at the same time then that the new comprehensive high school comes online. And so when you look at those bottom numbers where the red boxes are, you look at, in 2025, our capacity's met. So that's that 10-year plan that we've been able to address the number of students for the next 10 years with those 3 changes within the district. So, any questions on that? No? Should be all stuff that
This
you're
is
very,
what we've got to.
very familiar with. So, here's where I start taking a little bit of artistic license, we'll say, of really painting a picture and looking beyond that. Because as we started discussing and looking at options about how large the high school would be, we really wanted to make sure that we were meeting that need as things played out into the future. And so really what we wanted to look at is what happens in 2026 and then 2027, and how does that play out over the time? And so what I did is I took the growth rate, and these numbers are really small. You don't have to worry about the actual numbers, but basically took the average growth rate from 2015 to 2025 at each one of those levels. And you'll see the averages there. At the elementary school, it's 2.3, and the middle of high school, roughly 3.3%. And so as you play that out from 2026 through 2045, you look at the growth in Belton ISD. So this is over a 30-year period. So if you maintain growth of that 30-year period, you go from about the 10,000 students now to about 24,000 students within the district. So it's pretty tremendous growth. Pretty exciting for y'all along the way.
Exciting, that's a
Exciting.
good word for it.
Yep. And so then the question becomes,
Randy, you still gonna be around?
No.
and so then the question becomes, what does this mean from a facilities impact standpoint? And how are we starting to address this? And so what you'll see, each little red dot represents a facility need within the district. So on the top line there, and again, the numbers aren't necessarily important, it's really the red dots, is that if you assume that you're building an 800-student elementary school every time you need capacity, each red dot, you need to address elementary school capacity about every 4.5 years. When you look at the middle school capacity, again, if you're building a 1,000-student middle school, you would need to address middle school capacity about every 6.25 years. And at the high school level, again, if you're 2,500 students, you need to address it at 11.5 years. So that's
Thanks,
kind of,
Jared.
yes.
That's reality.
That's a great slide to, really puts it in. When we were doing our planning and getting to the roadmap, we kind of talked about some of that, but we all said, ooh, we just don't want to do that. But you put it graphically up there, it's very clear.
Clear. Well, and
That's good.
That's what my goal was, so. And I think what's key is you look at the high school level, that's what we wanted to understand is you look at, well, is it a 1,000-student school, is it 1,500, is it 25? How does that play out and work with the other facility needs within the district, because we know that Belton ISD is growing. So that's the demographic information. Any questions on that portion? Not yet, okay. So then we get to Jennifer's portion here on the funding availability. And I think we hit all the real key points along the way, and I'll just highlight those here. One is as you look into the next to last column, that is the INS rate. So when you look at these sheets, it's the total tax rate with the 50-cent test. So here in this particular scenario, as well as the other scenarios that we're going to look at tonight, you look at bonding capacity, there's not significant amount with the assumptions that are made until about 2034 to 2039. So that's key in terms of where's money. We know that there's growth coming, so when you start intersecting the demographic information and need for facilities and the available bonding capacity, this is where this becomes very important.
That's 7 schools behind.
Yes, ma'am. So then number 2 is property value. So here, as the first few years, it's about 5% in terms of growth. Then 5 years and beyond, it's conservatively estimated at 1.5% over time. And then the third one, of course, we hit state funding, all the reasons that may change or may not change, whether it's the socioeconomic culture here in the area, whether the state changes the funding formula, a lot of what ifs along there. And so the concern became, as we looked at it, is how does this affect your decision today for the high school, knowing, one, you have additional facility needs, and then 2, knowing that you're going to have to find additional bonding capacity, so hopefully state funding stays the same and you can recapture that third amount that we were discussing, or Jennifer was discussing earlier tonight. So, as we went through the financial information, what we really wanted to do is we've been talking about, we've wanted to identify 3 scenarios tonight to discuss in terms of funding amount and how that then rolls into the size of the high school. And these are not by any means set in stone in terms of, these are just 3 options out there that we've kind of heard have been considered so far at this point. And so the first one we want to start with is the maximum tax rate. So that would be a $150 million bond, which would mean a 23-cent tax rate. And so this is where we start then looking above the line. So as we start filling in those blanks above, I'm going to start with item 3 through 6. So we may need some additional, I'm putting in a placeholder of $4 million for other facilities. That may be the conversion of BHS 9, maybe a new roof on a facility, something like that needs to be included with the bond, or some energy efficiency if you're needing to address HVAC systems within the district, those type of elements within the design. When you back that out and you also pair it with the information from WRA of a new elementary school that cost about $24 million at a $150 million bond, you subtract that, what's left is $120 million for a high school. What's key about that, and we'll get into what this means a little bit beyond, that's $120 million for total project cost.
Right.
So that means all your soft costs, your development, furniture, technology, and the hard cost, which is the building. And we'll, as we get into the next presentation in December, we'll talk a little bit about what that's made up of. I have information and estimates to support all this documentation, but want to hit the kind of big picture tonight. So that's scenario number 1. Scenario number 2 is you look at a 20-cent tax increase, so not quite maxing out. That would roughly represent about $127 million of funding. And then again, as you look at those numbers, you'd have the 2 and the 4 for the other facilities. And here in this case, what I've started to do is use the middle number that WRA presented of about $20 million. So there are decisions that need to be made to be able to support that from the design of the school, and we'll get into, it's very similar considerations that we have here. But then that starts, again, reducing the high school capacity here, high school total project amount to $101 million. Scenario number 3 is 15-cent increase, which equates to about $99 million. And again, similar assumptions here. This would be the lowest cost elementary school as well as the lowest cost comprehensive high school at $76 million. Any questions on that?
You're still keeping the energy efficiency and other facility needs in there as a static, lowering the other 2, but not those. And
You could, and a lot of these are unknown at this point. So that is part of what is going to be planned over the next 6 to 8 months about where
that's
this.
$6 million that you've kept standard through all 3 options that may or may not be.
Correct.
But there's no technology money, and Mr. Peterson's gonna follow you, and he's gonna come in and say, he wants that line item too.
Could be very well that as well. So, and that, these are all to be determined, and again, artistic license here a little bit. So, remember Van Gogh.
Yep, Van Gogh's.
So then, as we talk about, and really what I want to hit is right now, start focusing in on the comprehensive high school, the 120 million, the 101, and 76, and what does that start to mean in terms of the design and discussions. And so as we start looking between those different options, there are going to be several strategies that we start to employ to be able to reduce those costs. And it's not necessarily one strategy or another, but it may be a combination of several. So the first is minimizing the facility size. So that may be limiting enrollment, like we talked about, it's 1,000 students instead of 2,500 initially. It may change the programs provided within the facility that have a direct relationship to spaces, or changing the building efficiency, which means how often is a classroom used? Is being able to increase that, maybe you need fewer classrooms within the facility. So that's one strategy. Second strategy would be minimizing first cost through materials and features. So that may be as simple as doing a modest design, which may be simple forms within the architectural design of the building, limiting the number of exterior windows, those type of things, or actually getting into product and system selection where you might, at a high school, traditionally we see chilled water, well maybe you need to go to package DX. And there's a cost differential between those two along the way. May even get into roofing systems, those type of details.
Of course, then you get into the issue of pay me now or pay me later on maintenance costs.
That is correct. That is correct, absolutely correct. So the first two are ones that I help support through the design and the construction process. The next two are decisions that the district gets to make. So the first one is you build sooner to reduce inflation costs. So you heard a little bit earlier about kind of the annual inflation cost. So the question becomes is, instead of maybe a 2021 opening, you do it 2020 and save that year you build literally an year earlier to save that percentage increase on the facility.
And so what percentage increase are you all seeing?
So we're also hearing 5% per year, so it's 0.5% per month is what we're hearing. You'll see in the slides later, I've got a 3.4% average, and that's the historic average over the last 10 or 12 years, which do include a minus 8% in the 2008-2009 timeframe with the downturn. So, I mean, on average, 3 to 4% is what we've seen over the last 10 years. And then the last one is, what we also discussed is calling for the bond in May to recapture more state funding. And so this, again, that one relates a little bit to, you may not be able to afford more school today, but out in the future, recapturing that additional third sooner may be another strategy to provide additional funding.
Okay, this may be the wrong time to ask this, but now twice this has come up of maybe we ought to consider May. We've been talking about November all along. Does that gain us a 6-month earlier election gain us a year opening?
So that is yes, potentially,
Could a
yes.
6-month earlier election gain us a full year of opening the school?
So for a high school, you're looking at, depending on how large, somewhere between 24 and 36 months of construction. So if you wanted to open in 2020, you would need to start construction in 2018. So if you called an election in May of 2017, that would almost give you a full year to make it through the design process.
So the answer is yes.
Yes. Same thing with.
6 months gains a year.
Yes.
Interesting.
And so with the elementary school,
There's disadvantages to that, though, by the way. As I recall, there were advantages to opening in odd years,
There was
UIL
a
and
UIL advantage.
all those kind of things. but,
Realignment, which is why we looked at
And
2021.
budgeting, I mean, there's some operational issues on this too.
Of course.
But cost matters, so, interesting.
yep. So these are the strategies that we're currently looking at and going to discuss with the district here as we move forward about how we maneuver through the design process and how we start looking at a master plan and providing options. And what I wanted to give you a preview tonight is how that affects the first cost today, as well as what that might look like as we move into the future. So as you look at implementing that strategy, starting with the $50 million bond and the 23 cent, you'd have the $120 million total project cost. Roughly speaking, 30% of that will be dedicated to soft cost. So that's all your furniture, your technology, fees, permits, geotechnical survey, those type of elements.
Okay, Jared, just to make sure we're on the same page here, what year are you talking about at that estimate? I mean,
So
Is
that's,
that current?
that's part of the
today's, or
detail,
is that
correct.
5
So
years from now?
right now, we're looking at about $260 a square foot for a high school. So it's
You say right now, like right now,
correct.
without the 5% inflation?
So if you, what we're seeing in the industry, if you bid it this year, 6 months ago, you're in the probably 250, 255 range. So as you look at appreciation a year or two, that's where you're starting to get into those numbers. And that's where we want to fine tune. Right now, I've just used a generic number at this point.
Sure.
Until we
Okay.
determine exactly when it's bidding and can move forward.
Okay.
But today, assumed about $260 a square feet. So when you take the 120 million, that means that the building construction, so what you would pay a general contractor would roughly be $89 million. When you work that out, that's 385,000 square feet, and that should serve 2,500 students. So that would be the ideal full build-out, you get it all in one fell swoop scenario. As you look at then the 20-cent increase in the 101 total project cost, you'd be about $75 million in building construction. That would reduce your total square footage available to about 325,000, and you'd be building for about 2,000 students in that scenario. And then the final then is at the 15-cent cost, that'd be 76 million total project, 250,000 square feet, and 1,500 students.
So what's the downside of doing that?
So
And
that-
then adding the wing on later for the other 1,000 wings? Is just the cost to add on so much higher, is that?
So what you have to balance is you're betting on interest rates and inflation rates. Because most likely what we've seen, with the exception of 2008 and 2009, is construction inflation has exceeded. It's usually been in the 5 to 6% range. So your costs are only going to get more expensive as you move forward. And you're heading right into my next slides.
Okay.
So the next slides is,
Can I say
Yes,
something
ma'am.
to Jared back on that slide? 1,500 students, you have to remember you have 1,000 student capacity now at the 9. So you're gaining 500 students in that scenario
yes, ma'am.
if you go with 1,500.
And I'm about to show graphically what that means here in the other.
Well, that's a really good point.
The other thing, and this is, again, the hard discussion we're going to have on Wednesday is the difference between the square footage means that you're cutting program. So at the 250 square foot program, you may not have all the amenities that are at Belton High School. They may be deferred to a future phase. So instead of 5 art classrooms that you need, you may only be able to build 3. Those type of things is that you're stepping into there, so you may not have all the amenities that are desired within the program day one that you would have to then share between the 2 high school campuses. So then to y'all's exact point of what does this mean in the future? So what I started doing is go back to that 30-year graph, and what does this do to your facility? So at the $150 million bond, you're able to build a full 2,500 students, which is represented on the bottom line. So in 2019, that facility comes on, and you wait that 12 and a half years, and then that's where you would need additional high school capacity with the second red block, and then again in about 12 and a half years, the third. So in 2017, you'd be $150 million. You'd build the new 800 student high school, BHS and becomes repurposed, and the 2,500 student high school. And that's this segment here. But what I saw was critical, and this was where kind of all this information comes together, is when you look in that 2026 to 2030 timeframe is where you need additional capacity for students. And so as you look at that, I'm calling it a 2024 to 2028 bond, just because you need to do it a few years beforehand to make sure you're getting there, is during that timeframe in this scenario, you would need 2 800-student elementary schools, 1,000 student middle school. So right now, for gross assumption, that roughly works out to a bond with new facilities is $118 million. And that's using the 3.4% inflation. So if your inflation rate exceeds that, that cost escalates above that timeframe. So then to the question, what happens when you build smaller? So here you'll see that the items in red are the things that are different than the previous one. So in the 2017, we've reduced the bond amount. We've only addressed 2,000 students. And then most notably, what I'd show you is here on the graph. See if the, right here, you'll see there's a 500 student addition that would be needed at the high school.
Which only buys 3 years.
Correct. And then immediately after, you'd need to address high school capacity again. And so in this scenario, and I've stayed with the same assumptions. So in the previous one, I was building a $25 million elementary school. In this one, I'm building a $20 million elementary school, just to keep the lines of thought parallel. But the cost would increase on this one if you built a $25 million elementary school. I've continued those lines forward.
Right.
So this one, you add in, from the previous slide, you add in a 500 student high school, and you're at 137 million. So it'd be 118 to 137 in this scenario. And then very similarly, in the 92, again, you look at those first segment, 99 million, 1,500 students. And basically, the red block here has moved to the left to, instead of 2029, it moves to 2026, where you'd have to address capacity. And then again, your funding for the following years goes up because you're now building 1,000 student. It makes your building for high schools about every 5 to 6 years rather than every 12 to 13 years.
Still looks a little more.
So our 3 scenarios, again, they're really based on the INS tax rate increase and how that total comes in. And really now I want to kind of circle back around to the original question. So what considerations should be looked at when choosing a bond amount? So this is, if I were in your place, what would I need to look at when making the decision? Because all these things come together and really affect the decisions that we make and will inform the schematic design process that we launch into in January. Because as you choose a $76.2 million school, that's going to equate to 250,000 square feet, we will need to make sure that we get all the parts and pieces in there to meet the district needs for that 8 or 10-year period. So considerations are, on the demographic side, will growth continue in Belton ISD over the next 10 years?
Yes.
From a funding side, what should we anticipate for property value growth? Right now, it's the 1.5%. Will that continue to increase? And really, as that increases, then you're gaining that bonding capacity. And it goes back to the comment before. If you have students, you get the growth, you get the bonding capacity, you build more facilities.
Hey, while we're on that, can I bring Jennifer back into the discussion? Because here's a question, I was going to ask you this earlier. We always ask this every time you do one of the presentations and factor in 1.5% growth, because we all say, we're going to grow more than that. That's too low. Why can't we plug in 2.5%? Because that's what historically we've had. And we're going to have a dip years and we're going to have high years, but why don't we just build the model at 2.5%?
We can. It won't affect your $150 million capacity, but it'll affect.
It'll affect, right,
INS
but it
tax rate.
affects the drop, how it
Yeah.
drops down.
We can alter the model to have 2.5%.
Well,
if you're comfortable.
why would we not want to do that if isn't that more realistic?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, you're growing at close to 5 now, but you did have that period where you didn't really grow
Right,
at all
that's
for a
right.
couple
So-
years. So your average is closer.
To 2.3,
Yeah,
I think is
yeah.
what you said. But
So, I mean, we're in a good time now. It's fine to change it as long as you all are comfortable doing that. Again, it doesn't affect our $150 million, so. it
Right,
doesn't
because
affect
that's at the
your
end,
future
at the
prospects.
outset. I understand the
If you're
outset
more comfortable
capacity,
with that,
but,
we don't have a problem plugging in 2.5% just to show the drop occurring sooner.
okay, I don't know that I'm more comfortable with that. I'm just asking from the, what the options are.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I didn't go to the mic. Do you want me to repeat that, or are we, okay?
Well, so again, the question is, you built in 5% for 3 years and then 1.5% going forward. We always do that, and it seems like every time I've sat through these bond discussions, the question always comes up, why don't we project a higher than 1.5%? Because it always is, and historically it's 2 to 2.5% with some ups and downs.
Sure.
Over the years, but I understand conservative, but I also know, let's be realistic in what we're saying.
And we can change the model, again, as I was telling them, it doesn't affect the $150 million capacity, it only affects your future
Right.
bonding abilities. So if you feel more and that's when you said you didn't necessarily feel more
I don't
comfortable,
know
but
if I feel more
if that's
comfortable
something
with
that
it.
you all would like to see, it doesn't give us any heartburn to make that change. Or we could just plug in the 5-year average, maybe that would be a better way of looking at it, the 5-year average. So,
Well, let me say this. I'd
2.3
like to see
instead of
the model
2.5.
played out with that, using the average.
yeah, just use the 5-year
Projecting
average
out.
instead of 2.5%, just use the average.
Right. I'd like to see what it does to the model. I understand it doesn't change the initial capacity, or.
Right.
bond
But it will
capacity,
change, it will
but
change the
changes off
future.
Future,
And so if the concerns the community is going to think, for example, that, because our models are so conservative, that you have no capacity again for 30 years,
is not
we don't
true.
want to give them that impression either.
No, well, I don't want to have that impression. If it's not real, I want to be conservative, but also want to be real.
It's hard for us to project after, a year realistically. So, I mean, those assumptions are your assumptions. So if y'all like that, then
Yeah,
we're good with that because we
I'm
really
not ready
believe
to
those are
say
yours.
I'm even
Yeah, I know you wanna
proposing
see
that
it
we do
first.
But I'd like to see what it looks like.
Sure, and the model's in Excel and we can plug in
Yeah.
anything we want. You can look.
make a model with, a May model with the state aid in it as well.
Sure, that gets you about $1.5 million of benefit. So that's essentially moving it in terms of the immediate impact of that is about $150,000 of
So,
benefit in terms of
yeah,
state aid.
because one of the things
So it's not
that
a
I've-
huge deal breaker, but it is money to the districts.
It's real
Yeah,
money and
yeah.
it matters. And one of the things that I've seen over the years, all these bond issues that we've done is, I'm glad, I would absolutely much rather be able to say it's lower than we projected. That's always been a good thing for us to say. But it doesn't have to be a lot under, it just needs to be.
Yeah, well, and I know that's been a concern of the board in the past, is that we don't want to be so conservative that we could have built a bigger high school,
Right.
and, we don't.
And that's the issue.
We don't want to do that. But one thing that I will point out that we are doing now that we haven't done in the past, this will be the first election, is including those frozen values. So that will,
Okay,
that will take away from some of our cushion. So that's gone now.
That's a good point.
And we don't have a huge cushion in terms of interest rate the way we kind of did in the past. We were trying to be more realistic. So we may actually eat up our cushion pretty quickly, depending on what happens in the market. So we have, that 1.5% growth
That's a good
is some cushion, but we are becoming closer to where I don't think we'll see those big swings like we did in 2003, where we told them, we were 5 cents or more off. I mean, we've been closer, and I think that frozen values will make us closer. But, absolutely, if y'all want to change it to see what 2.5 or 2.3% will look like, we're more than happy to accommodate
see what
that
some
and run some
models
different,
look
yeah,
like, just to
of
see.
course, yeah.
Obviously,
Because really,
it's
I
all
know
projections, so we don't know.
your job is different than even our job, is you're not looking at just this election, you're looking at the next several elections. So we certainly understand that and are sympathetic that you want to know what you're looking at.
Thank you. Okay. Back
So
to you.
Yes, so we've got the property value growth and the state funding formula, which we've talked about, and really what's key, and just going to say, I think what we're all eliciting here is, as you look specifically in this timeframe that's highlighted in the second red box, is the question is what happens after 2025 and how do we address that growth? And how does the high school specifically, as you switch between the $150 million bond here, and as you look at $101 million, that you start adding an addition for high school needs in that time frame, as well as in the $99 million bond. And if growth exceeds that, it may accelerate that need even sooner along the way. So then, so state funding formula, and then the all-important question for y'all is what INS rate will the community support from that standpoint, is what is acceptable from that side. And then facilities, this really then becomes the first two is how do we address student enrollment in terms of size of the high school, But even as we get into elementary school needs, do you start looking at portables, or is permanent facilities the key importance right there to address growth and that cushion? And then what size and kind of facilities should we build? So as we talk, for example, on the elementary school, the 25, 20, and $17 million bonds, those represent very different facility types in terms of construction, in terms of how much ability we have for 21st century learning environments. I would say the nicest, which would be like North Belton Middle School, is that's a little more expensive than some of the traditional schools that we've seen. So how does that affect education and enrollment? And then ultimately, what I pointed out is how do you address facility needs in 2026 to 2030, that time frame. So next steps from here.
So does that money get us the Leander High School in red?
The
Glenn High School in red?
The 120 million, yes, that is leaning towards Tom Glenn. The 120 million is leaning towards Tom Glenn High School. So right now, that was it was 92 million construction cost. They paid for fields directly, but, roughly in that time frame, that's where we would be looking. It was. Do you remember? Yeah.
Things were down significantly, or even a little bit more
Yep.
than we are. And they paid for some things that
Well,
were.
y'all can do some design things to make that.
When we look at those three facility sizes, what does that mean in terms of the parts and pieces that go into the building? We'll start looking at the site feasibility study. Is currently the site next to High Point Elementary School. There's about 65 acres that would be dedicated to the high school, and will that support everything that is desired for that ideal facility program? And then even getting into construction delivery methods discussion, where we'll talk about things like competitive sealed proposal, which is CSP, or construction manager at risk, which is CMR. And then ultimately look in January for approval of a lot of those items so we continue moving through the process.
Your opinions on various methods?
Yes, sir. We will have lots of information for you. So with that, a lot of information. Any questions that I can answer for you?
Anybody else got any questions? A lot of information. Thank you. I love how you put all those together. And Jennifer, thank you for jumping back into that. That's a good integrated report that spells it out pretty clear.
Well, thank y'all very much,
Thank you.
and we'll look forward to seeing you in December.
Andy, you got anything to add?
No, I think that's a great job.
Thank you.
All right.
Did Amanda give her question?
Much as it can be answered.
Sure, yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, speaking of other needs and other things, let's talk about technology.
Good evening. How's everybody doing tonight? Thank you for inviting me to address you with our technology successes and our way ahead. As you know, I've been here for about 4 months now, and I've had a wonderful time so far, and I know we're getting ready to really look towards the future and do some good work. This update is going to summarize last spring's activities, move through this school year, and look at our future E-rate plans. Additionally, I'll discuss our Tech Pack event that we had on October 5th, which brought our community leaders together to showcase our students' achievements and also give our students good lessons learned on what the community is looking forward to. Next slide. Thank you. All right, starting off with the spring and summer of this year. The first thing we did was upgraded the internet bandwidth from 900 megabytes to 2 gigabytes, which gave us greater capacity at both the high school and the district. Secondly, purchased 2,900 iPads at the high school, which allowed us to then push those iPads down to the elementary schools, which then allowed us to really look into being a one-to-one district from the 4th grade to the 12th grade. Additionally, what we did was we purchased 144 MacBook Pros for the incoming 9th graders at New Tech. And then the teacher laptop replacement, we actually gave the teachers the opportunity to select their own laptops, which really flipped the entire district, because it used to be PC heavy and it went to MacBook heavy now instead of PC heavy. So
That was an intriguing, that's a culture shift or just
Yes, sir. In fact, it's moving more towards that MAC distinguishment, so.
We really wanted our teachers to have the tool that they were most comfortable with using, and many of the apps that they use orientate themselves towards the
Well,
MacBook.
but again, I just want to say, giving them the option and letting them choose, I think was really empowering and also just a great experiment in what tools do they want to use. They'll use we can give them a lot of things, but if it's not what they want to use, they're not going to use it.
Absolutely.
I like that. I really like
Absolutely. All right, next slide, please. Okay, now, our E-rate Category 2 upgrades that we're doing this year, I'm super excited about this. We've almost fully conducted the network and wireless infrastructure part of it. We're replacing switches and access points at all the elementary schools. Lakewood, Pirtle, Sparta, and Leon Heights are complete, and we continue supporting those schools to ensure that everything burns in properly. And tonight was actually the Miller Heights installation. So Miller Heights completes the elementary school installation, and we will continue to work through the Thanksgiving timeframe to make sure that everything is burned in appropriately. And then the wireless access point upgrades, South Belton was fully refreshed last week, so we continue to watch that also, and we're doing really well right now. Anticipate that the entire project, that part of the project will be complete by 28th of November. Additionally, right now, we are planning for our next year's upgrades with E-rate Category 2. And what we're going to do is, we're looking at upgrading the other 600 access points within the district. It's at New Tech, Lake Belton, North Belton, High Point, Chisholm Trail.
Can you put in the layman's terms, what does a refresh mean?
It means that we're replacing all the older access points.
So refresh means not just upgrading, it means replacing.
Right.
Okay.
Right, absolutely. Because the majority of these access points are 7 and 8 years old. So in order to give our teachers and students the ability to really incorporate these new apps and Windows 10 and everything else, we're having to actually upgrade those access points.
At these elementary schools, how many devices can be online at the same time?
Each access point, depending on what they're doing, can allow 20 to 30. So if they're,
you're putting one per classroom?
yes, sir, absolutely. One access point per classroom.
I would think there's at least a third.
Well, with the,
Something multiple. Well, not
well,
elementary.
with the elementary schools.
Yeah, yeah.
Right,
Not
So-
elementary.
Not in elementary, that's
Right.
right, that's right. So that's a good number.
absolutely. Then also, with the networking cabling that we're doing is we're going to add 25 more cables to High Point and Chisholm Trail to give them the ability for that one access point per classroom, which will bring them up to everybody else. And then also, here in the district, we've got our core infrastructure has aged. So that includes our content filter, which allows us to be compliant with SIPA and our firewall, and also with our district core routers, which bring all the information in from Time Warner.
And we're funding all this through our budget.
Yes, sir, absolutely. It's funded through our budget, and
We're
then,
plugging in some money for technology in the bond issue, but you don't need that. We're putting that in our budget, right?
well, this is just for this next year.
I got you.
And additionally, what we'll do is we will bring this all to you around the February timeframe for the
Okay.
board. That way you can see everything that we're doing.
Yeah.
All right, next slide, please. All right, so next, what we're getting ready to start at the end of November, which will run to about the end of January, is our telephone call router replacement. What we're going to do is, these are also aged equipment, and the support has run out for this equipment, so we're having to replace it. And we're going to replace the core infrastructure here, and then also at the elementary and middle schools. And that'll happen here in the next month and a half. Additionally, as we look forward into the spring, the annual freshman New Tech MacBook purchase, so between 132 and 144 of those will purchase. And then also the 900 iPad purchase for Lake Belton Middle School for this year's refresh. And then additionally, evaluating our current system for reliability and security. We're currently looking at ways to upgrade internet and fiber bandwidth in the future as we build these new schools, also disaster recovery and some of our aging storage. So we continue to look at those. Next slide, please. And finally, these last two slides, we're going to talk about community involvement. In fact, the first week I was here, I had a long conversation with Dr. Buchanan on her vision and what she wanted for community involvement. And the two main things that came out of that were students and get the community, get those leaders in so they can see what we're doing. So on October 5th, we had our first Tech Pack of the year. We had a total of 33 participants, and 13 of those were community leaders, and we had great diversity within the community. We had folks from UMHB, Temple College, Fort Hood, Veterans Administration, local business owners. So we had this large gathering of different backgrounds, and it went very, very well. The vision, preparing every student to excel in tomorrow's world through technology, education, use, and understanding, it all goes hand in hand. And then our goal, sharing information within the community. Next slide, please. Oh, definitely seeking input. And finally, we had 3 instructional program highlights. Number 1 was the computer science, where a teacher demoed his Project Lead the Way and also some computer apps, which we saw last month also here in the board meeting. Next was the audio video production. Talked about how they film events, how the Jumbotron works, how they're able to bring the community to see that. And then finally, the radio broadcasting. Talked about the state champion broadcast team, and also how she's pulling in as many students as she can. That way, all these students are learning these life skills. That way, when they graduate high school, they're going right into the world, and they are able to get a job like that. And then finally, we did the tour of the new Digital Learning Center, which is where we had the entire event. Dr. Dubois did a tour of the renovated library. And then finally, we had a catered lunch by the wonderful students in the culinary arts section. And pending your questions, that concludes my update.
I just had a quick question. So, on the access points and all the cabling, I mean, all of that is a big job. So is that something you guys are doing yourselves, or are you
No.
contracting that out?
Yes,
or-
it's all contracted out.
Oh, okay.
In fact, I've had either John Greiner or Tim Fenton's been to each school with each of the vendors to ensure all the proper protocols are followed, checking in, ensuring everything's cleaned up, stuff like that, so.
Good deal.
I'm super excited.
So excited, so important for what we're doing, that we can equip our folks, that giving a lot of devices to our teachers to use has limited effectiveness if they can't access the internet.
Right.
So upgrading in these areas is so important. So appreciate the attention to that. Good to know where you're headed.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Anybody? Okay. Well, next report. One requested. We have an Aspiring Administrator Academy new this year. Shirley, tell us about that.
Yes, our core work continues to be the success and achievement of our students, yet so closely tied to that is the continued growth of our staff members. And I'm really excited to say this is the first year that we are implementing an Aspiring Administrators Academy for our Belton ISD employees who are interested in becoming administrators. And our goal with this academy is twofold, really. It's to build leadership capacity on the campuses where the staff members currently serve, and also to ensure that we have high-quality leaders trained and ready to assume leadership roles in the future. Oh, and that's our group this year. Yeah. And so last spring, we advertised the academy, and applicants they submitted their resumes and their letters of interest, and we had over 30 applications. And this year being the first year, we selected 18 of those 30 applicants to participate in this first year of the academy. All of the participants have either completed their principal certification program or they're finishing up their last couple of courses before they take their certification test. And so really what it looks like is we meet once a month for 2 hours, or close to 2 hours, and we focus all of our learning around those Texas principal standards. Two of the main tools we've used, or two of the tools we've used this year, we're using throughout the year, our Toy Box Leadership was really an opening activity for us. It's a simple, fun leadership book that highlights some critical leadership skills that we can connect to the toys that we played with in our youth. So it was a fun way to get started to highlight some really critical leadership skills. Another big piece of our learning is Leverage Leadership, which is really a popular book right now in the educational field. And it highlights 7 critical strategies that school leaders should leverage in order to improve student outcomes. It's been a really great read. We're about halfway through the book, and each month we read a couple of chapters together. And the fun part, that's a new way to learn for me, is we're blogging, and I'll post something, and then the participants post their what their take on the learning is. And those key leverage strategies are really good, and some of them include data-driven instruction, which we spend a lot of time on in our district, and making sure we have a solid curriculum in place, and quality instruction, and so forth. So really, really good information. We cover a lot of different topics throughout the year, and you can see those under topics of study. But one of the neatest things that I'm finding is our own experts within the district, and how much insight and they're able to provide to our participants. And each month we have one of our own experts present. In our first meeting in September, Dr. Concannon did the roadmap to 2025, presented that to our participants, and they had such wonderful questions, and it was a really great learning time for the whole academy, all of the participants. And then you can see throughout the year we have key pieces of learning presented by our own experts throughout the year. Some of the neat ones I think you'll find, we have a principal panel in December, and they will be working with the group on how to build campus culture, not only student culture, but also staff culture. And what better way to learn about culture than from our principals who are working on that every day. Human resources, business services, student services, our own folks will be presenting how we do things in Belton ISD, so that our participants will really have a broad knowledge of not only leadership, but also how we lead in Belton. One of actually the main project, the main thing that the participants are required to do throughout the whole year is work closely with their principal on a leadership project. They meet with their principal at the beginning of the year and talk through how they can get some leadership experience throughout the year on their campus. And so the 18 participants have worked with their principal. Some are working in small groups of 2 or 3. Others are working on their own. And with their principal, they have selected a project. Some of these, there's a couple that are working on improving attendance, and some that are working on culture pieces on their campus. There's one project on diversity and compassion. And lots of great projects. I'm looking forward to May. All of our participants will get an opportunity to share their projects and the outcomes of their projects. We want to focus on the outcomes, and we will invite, all the participants will be there, all the principals will be invited, and our district personnel will be invited to hear about their projects and their project outcomes. And it'll be a great opportunity for us as a district to get to know these potential leaders and hear and celebrate their work that they've accomplished over the year. And there are some more projects. Do y'all have any questions?
Thank you for doing this. What a
It's
great
fun.
way to grow our own. We've talked about that a lot. This is a wonderful opportunity for them. And I asked this question earlier, but I'll ask it so everybody can know. These people aren't getting any stipend or extra, they're just volunteering their time? Is that right?
Exactly, it's
I mean,
all
they're
volunteer.
volunteering. They're doing this for their own professional growth
Yes.
opportunity. They're not, we're not paying them to do this. They're just taking advantage of a tremendous opportunity to work with some real leaders and learn. That's not offered everywhere, and it's certainly not taken advantage of when it's offered by everyone. And so, commend you for leading that, and for those who have signed up for this project. That's great.
Great.
Exciting. We'll look forward to hearing about what we learn, maybe what we get from them, and say, here's what's gonna make us better. So
That's
come back and let us know after May.
Well, thank you. We actually had two Academy participants here tonight. Kristen Butler is here. And then we also had Zach Klein earlier
Zach was
when
here
we had the
also,
band,
yeah.
the band directors with their students.
That's great. Wonderful. Great opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Carla. Charlotte does a good job. There you go. Give her a hand. Hey, well, so let me just add to that. She mentioned those of you that are involved. Dr. Kincannon certainly started that off, but those of you that are involved in this, thank you for your commitment to helping us grow our own and help people with professional growth. What a great opportunity for you to share your expertise and to help us get better as we grow together. It's a neat project. I'm excited about that. Okay. Issues or concerns for future agenda or administrative reports? Jason, you got anything? Sue? Mike? Amanda? Jeff? All right. Well, let me give you some calendar events. Tomorrow night is the Belton High School Academic Awards Banquet at the Expo. Hope you've RSVP'd and be there. This is a great opportunity for us to cheer them on. I don't know what structure they'll have. Last year, we were over by the photo booth high-fiving. I don't know what we're gonna do today. I don't know what we're doing, but we'll go that. The other one is, we all got a calendar invite, but I wanted to give a little extra encouragement for you to participate in the Great Thanksgiving Listening Project at Belton High School. They're creating an oral history. This is a national project, but our students are involved. It's a formatted interview. It's a 1 hour on Thursday, the 16th, Wednesday, the 16th. What's today? Wednesday.
This Wednesday.
Yes, this Wednesday, from 1 to 2 in the library at the high school. Neat opportunity to interact with some students and share your story. I've got a little flyer if you're interested in reading more about that, but I want to encourage you to attend that.
What time was tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night's at 6 o'clock at the Expo. We've got another community pep rally for our Tigers Thursday night at the Gin, 7 o'clock, I believe. Is that right?
7 o'clock.
And then we've got the fall updates, reminder again, we'll want to get to all of those, hope we've gotten those signed up. We have a Christmas social planned, up at the high school, on the 8th of December.
At 5 or 5:30?
Let me look.
I have no idea.
Hang on.
It's on the
I've got it
8th.
calendar. I think it's 5:30. Let me double check.
Check your calendar invite.
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
5 to
That's,
6:30.
and I assume that'll be like we've done in the past. You don't have to be there at 5, you can come and go.
It is come and go. and
5 to
it-
6:30 or
It
7,
will
5
be
to
in
7.
the library.
There's
this
usually a
year.
good concert that night. I don't know who's, but there's usually down at the PAC, so do that. Our next meeting, and again, this, this month, our meeting is early in the month because of the holidays. Next month, it's even earlier. We'll be meeting on the 12th of December, because the next week we'll be into the Christmas break. So on 12th of December is our next meeting, and Leo's not here, but we'll want to wish him a happy birthday on November 29th. Might want to mark your calendar, send Leo a little message. And since next week is Thanksgiving, I want to end our meeting with a special thank you. Thank you to you all who work hard for our school district, but most importantly, thank you for working hard for our kids. You're making a difference. You're doing great things. It's exciting to go around our district and every department, every campus. Great things are happening, and you're making a difference. So I am very happy to speak on behalf of the board, but ask anybody if they want to join in. We appreciate you. We are thankful for you. So next week, as we're thinking about Thanksgiving, I want you to all be thankful for you, as I am all the time. So With that, at this time, the board will go into closed session to discuss real property. You're welcome to go home. You're welcome to stay. We will reconvene in open session to adjourn. It's 8:15. It is 8:50 PM. We will reconvene in open session. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Good night. Night.